home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They've got him, it's a sack!
Sixers.
Oh, baby!
And Flyers.
He scored!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD. Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey.
Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash, filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle, streaming live on YouTube and X at 973 ESPN. After the end of yesterday's show, I genuinely thought we were going to be moving on. But apparently, Bryce Harper did a lot of talking this offseason, and his perpetual talking has landed us all into the awkward, unfortunate conversation that we have to get into. We have more Phillies drama for you here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Plus, questions about the Eagles' defense as we go through this NFL offseason. As always, you guys can join the conversation at 609-403-0973 on the Whitehorse RV text board. Coming up on the show today, we have the Phillies mailbag with Frank Klose from 973ESPN.com. An earlier edition of Knicks Nuggets today at 3:30. Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. We'll get deeper into the Eagles and their offseason questions coming up at 4 p.m. And also Kevin Kinkead from Crossing Broad. He will join us to get some perspective from him on this Bryce Harper stuff. And for those who didn't know what I mean Bryce Harper stuff. So I get a text from Nick Earnshsaw last night. I don't even remember what time it was. Last night is such a blur for me, to be honest with you guys. But at some point last night, Nick Earnshaw texted me. And there was a teaser trailer put up by the podcast Bussin' with the Boys. For those who don't know, there's a podcast. It's on the FanDuel network. It's with Taylor Lewan and Will Compton. It's one of the 2,100 player podcasts that are out there. Well, apparently, thanks to Will Compton's relationship with Bryce Harper, they landed him on the podcast. So last night, I'm like, all right, well, this thing drops at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'll deal with it in the morning. Wake up this morning, find out that it's a 3-hour-long pod. Well, no one in their right mind, unless they're driving cross country, has time to sit down for a 3-hour podcast. So I'm scrolling through, trying to find the part where Harper finally talks. And frankly, it was worse than I thought. So we're going to get into the Bryce Harper audio here and get your guys' reactions on the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. We will have a poll question related to this coming up a little bit later in the hour. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm really getting tired. I'm really, really getting tired of this Harper stuff. And you can tell me all you want that, well, that wasn't Harper's intention. He was asked a question. Well, so was Dave Dombrowski. And I went and found the original audio of what Dave Dombrowski said back in October. Because I want to play for you guys what Harper is saying and what Dombrowski said. Okay? I don't think it's a coincidence or a small thing that this episode of Busted the Boys came out this week. You don't think Harper had a say in when this came out? I mean, talk about adding fuel to a fire that we thought was done. So let's get into it. And when I'm done playing the Harper audio and commenting on it, I want to play for all of you the original statements from Dave Dombrowski. And you guys can tell me at 609-403-0973. Are we making too much of this? Does Harper need to shut up? Do us in the media need to shut up about it? So, about halfway through the pod episode, there's a comment made and they use the word elite. And then Harper throws in the slide comment, well, I'm not elite, so I wouldn't know nothing about that. To which, Taylor Lewan and Will Compton kind of have their, what was that about? And then they realize, oh, wait, he's talking about what happened months ago. So let's start with Bryce Harper's initial reaction to what Dave Dombrowski said back in October. Again, this is from the Bussin' with the Boys podcast.
I think there's things within the organization that you probably shouldn't say in an outward expression, right? Like if I had a problem with you, I'd probably, if you were on my team, I'd probably bring you to the side and talk to you. And so I think that was one thing when I signed there was like, hey, we don't say anything about the organization outwardly or anything else. Make sure it's behind the closed doors, and if you have a problem, we'll talk about it.
Keep it family.
No doubt. And so I think that's the kind of where it rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. I respect Dave and everything that he's done in the game and everything else. He's great at his job and stuff. But, I think for me personally, if you have a problem, you can talk to me and have an issue with it, the way I'm playing or whatever.
So a couple of main takeaways from that is, number one, Harper keeps referencing this. When I first signed here, and it's like, well, Dombrowski wasn't here when you first signed. So one could argue that whatever was said back in 2018, 2019 may have changed, morphed, evolved. I don't know what to call it over the years. But the other part of it is he talked about how, whatever was said, they could have just come to him and said it. And I think that's where it feels like Bryce Harper, to me, is just as much as fault for all of this. Because he's treating it like, well, they're going to come and talk to me. Well, Bryce, if you try to go talk to them, Harper then goes on to say that this never needed to become a story. And I laugh about the final part of this because it's like, well, Bryce, if you don't want it to become a story and you don't want to be asked about it, why are you still talking about it?
Again, if he had something like that to say, obviously I'd want him to say it to me.
I assume he has your phone number?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that'd probably be a good way to go about it.
I think the tough part is it's just a story that doesn't need to be out there. So when we get to spring training, it's going to be a story. People are going to talk to me about it. People are going to ask me about it. It's just it doesn't need to be a story. You don't want stories like that in spring. You don't want that to be right when you get there. Hey, what do you think? Great. This is what I have to answer. Besides,
everyone's got their opinion. Onward.
Yeah, exactly.
But yet you're still talking about it, Bryce. That's what I don't comprehend. If you don't want it to be a story, then stop talking about it. He could have gone to the media on Sunday and said, look, it's water under the bridge. I don't want to talk about it. He could have told to the Bustin' with the Boys podcast, hey, something happened months ago. It happened. I don't want to talk about it anymore. If he didn't want it to be a story, why are you wearing a t-shirt that says not elite? And then you tell the media on Sunday, well, someone handed me a T-shirt and I wore it. Like the whole thing just screams disingenuous here. And I never thought in my life I would refer to Bryce Harper that way, because Harper has always been this authentic, he's a real guy. He's not some, fraudulent, fake, phony guy. So for him to be talking this way, it's got me very, very perplexed about, Bryce, do you hear yourself talking? Then he gets asked about by Taylor Lewan, well, when did you hear these comments? Like, what was your reaction in the moment? Like, do you remember where you were when you heard this? And then Harper dug himself a deeper hole.
Where did I see this? I don't know. I can't even remember. I was just shocked. More than anything, I was just like, that's kind of wild. It's a wild take.
Yeah. Have you...
Obviously, I didn't have the greatest postseason or like the year that I wanted to have, but if they want to talk about like, what stats mean or anything else, like they have their numbers. Like they know where I'm at, like number-wise for, the tier of the league and stuff like that. Like it's still there, So.
Yeah. Yeah, what? Personally, you don't even remember where you heard it. Like, I always go back to Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. Mike Gill has always talked about where he was when the Nick Castellanos news happened, right? Or, if you're a sports fan, right, we all remember where we were when the Eagles won their first Super Bowl. We vividly remember our feelings, the moment, right? For something that seems to be so important to Harper, he can't even remember where he heard it, how he heard it, when it happened. And then he turns it into, well, everybody's got their stats, but, they could have presented it to me. And it keeps going back to this. The Phillies were the one who had to go to him. Where is the responsibility on Harper to go to them and be like, yo, we need to have a conversation right here, right now. No Zoom call. I want to sit down. I want to hash it out. Let's be men. Let's just do it now and get it over with. It's just so bizarre to me. Harper feels like a person in a relationship who keeps complaining that the other person keeps doing something, and then you keep asking them, well, did you talk to them about it? No. Well, do they know that you don't like it when they do this with the laundry? No. Do they know that you don't like it when they call you this cute name? No. Well, why haven't you told them? Well, they can come and talk to me about why they're doing it. Well, this conversation's a two-way street, right? And this is where Harper then kind of finishes the conversation with Bussin' with the Boys podcast about, he says that there is no beef between him and Dombrowski.
Was there any beef with you guys throughout the season to where it could have led them saying that?
No, I think that's the thing. I have a good relationship with, Dave, so it was just kind of weird, for him to even.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you
that
were
way,
just shocked seeing all
so
that.
I was just shocked.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, what would go through his mind. And he's like, yeah, this is the appropriate time to bring up a comment like this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we didn't have the postseason we wanted to. We got beat. It didn't end the way we wanted to. And I know all those things. And if you want to blame somebody, I don't mind you blaming me. I didn't play well. I didn't have my best series. And I'm totally fine taking the blame for anything that happens. It comes with, the territory and things like that.
He says there's no beef. He says there's no issue. But yet he's still talking like there's beef and issue. Again, it's like someone in a relationship saying, oh, everything's fine at home. I really don't like it when they do this. And you're like, everything's fine, but you just spent 10 minutes talking about something. Now, I will clarify by saying the Bussin' with the Boys podcast was a 3-hour pod, and about 90 minutes of it was them talking to Harper about the city of Philadelphia, talking about their favorite foods to eat on the road, who has the best burgers. There's a lot of stuff in there that has nothing to do with this. This didn't even come up until I got to double check my notes, but I believe it was, I think it was an hour and 30 into the pod, if I remember correctly. Let me see here. Let me just check my notes here. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. This is the only downside when you're doing everything yourself, when you're, hosting the show, putting everything together, taking your notes, is that the moment you don't remember something and you didn't write it down on a piece of paper, you got to check your phone notes. Sorry, it was 2 hours and 28 minutes into the pod. I was wrong. I was an hour off. So 2:28 into the pod. And Harper was on the pod from Harper was on the pod for 2 hours. So out of the 2 hours, they spent 5 minutes on this, according to my notes. But yet this is probably the biggest takeaway from the pod. Because the whole point of Harper talking about it on Sunday to the media at spring training was, I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to be done with it. But apparently, he wasn't done with it. And we'll get to the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Whitehorse RV Center in Williamstown and Galloway. Your RV adventure starts here at Whitehorse RV. With the weather getting warmer, you might want to think about your next road trip, and Whitehorse RV should probably be the place to go. Sponsors of the text board here on 97.3 ESPN. But before we get to the text board at 609-403-0973, I want to replay what Dombrowski said, his original comments. Now, before I play them, I will say, I have seen nobody else bring up or replay what Dombrowski said back in October. And in fact, it was actually difficult for me to find the original audio. I kept finding quotes. I kept finding people talking about it. But for whatever reason, I want to say it was scrubbed. But it's almost like people don't want to actually play or talk about what was really said. So, for you, all listening on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle, watching on YouTube and X at 97.3 ESPN. It's 2 parts. So here's part 1 of what Dave Dombrowski said. This was back on October 16th. So it is literally months ago from today. 4 months ago and a day from today, Dave Dombrowski said this.
I mean, in Bryce's case, of course, he's still a quality player. He's still an all-star caliber player. He didn't have an elite season like he has had in the past. And I guess we only find out if he becomes elite or he continues to be good. I mean, it's not like it's like if you say to me, I look around the league, I was trying to think, Freddie Freeman. He's a really good player, right? He still is a good player. Is he elite like he was before? Probably not to the same extent, and so that's nothing that could, Freddie's a tremendous player, and that's, to me, is Bryce.
So I think the comment that stands out is when he says that Harper didn't have an elite season, but he goes on to say, quote, "We will find out if he stays elite or he becomes really good," unquote. I think that's probably the trigger point for this whole conversation, because now it becomes to interpretation. Is Dombrowski saying he's no longer elite and he's a really good player, or is Dombrowski asking a question out loud? Now, Dombrowski then goes on to do one of his classic tropes where he loves to tell you a story, give you an example. And I think the Freddie Freeman example is fine. I don't think it's a bad example. I do think that it's an interesting part of the conversation where, Dombrowski, is saying, look at Freddie Freeman. He's still one of the best first basemen in baseball, but no one thinks he is an elite player anymore. And his question is that what Harper's going to become? Is Harper going to become one of the best first basemen in the sport, but no longer be an elite caliber player after not having an elite statistical season? Now, there is a part 2 of what Dave Dombrowski said again. 4 months and a day from this very date. Dave Dombrowski.
Can he rise to the next level again? I don't really know that answer. I mean, and really he's the one that will dictate that more than anything else. I mean, it's what it comes down to. So I don't think he's content with the year that he had. And again, it wasn't a bad year. But when I think of Bryce Harper, you think an elite, right? You're thinking one of the top 10 players in baseball, and I don't think it fit into that category. But again, very good player. I have no idea when you see somebody. I have seen guys at his age. Again, he's not old. That level off, or I've seen guys rise again. We'll see what happens.
So then the next trigger point that I'm trying to decipher here, okay? Dave Dombrowski says, can Harper rise to the next level? Again, I don't know. Then he goes on to say, I don't think Harper is content. Then he goes on to do his little, Dave Dombrowski thing. Well, I've seen guys who have had down years and come back and gotten better. I've seen other guys who've had, this and that. So, Dombrowski is a very interesting guy because he doesn't speak very directly, but he's very open with the media when he gives them time. Now, to me, I don't find anything Dombrowski said there that means that Harper should be offended. Now, if Harper is offended by someone having an open-ended question at a press conference, again, I go back to Bryce. Why are you waiting for Dombrowski to speak to you? Why don't you go talk to him? If you don't like the fact that your significant other keeps calling you baby, then you got to tell them, stop calling me baby. If you don't like the fact that they put the toilet paper the wrong side up or down and you keep complaining about it, but you don't say anything about it, is that not on you? And to further extend this conversation, a week after Dombrowski's comments, he was on the Foul Territory show with AJ Brzezinski and Eric Kratz, two former ball players who confronted him and said, Dave, would you like to clarify your remarks about Bryce Harper? And this is what Dombrowski said.
First of all, I mean, to me, Bryce Harper is one of the best players in the game of baseball. And when I say he didn't have, they asked me, what type of year did you think he had? And I said, he had a very good year. I don't think he had an elite year. And when I say that, when I think of Bryce Harper, it's a compliment because the reality is there are, 8, 10 players in the game of baseball every year. When they're not, let's say, in the MVP consideration, for whatever reason, sometimes it can be an injury factor, sometimes they just have a bad year, but whatever, it's not an elite year for them.
Now, to me, I find that explanation to be very clarifying. And as probably the foremost critic and complainer about Dave Dombrowski here at 97.3 ESPN, Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a Tuesday, I'm defending him. I think Dombrowski's like, look, this is one of the 10 best players in baseball. Did he have an elite year? No. Is it surprising when he doesn't have an elite year? Yeah, it is. And that's where we start today's Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. The drama continues with Bryce Harper and the Phillies, thanks to another podcast. Dan and EHT, Cole and LBI, Glenn and Absekin, all your text on the other side on the Whitehorse RV text board. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea City. Streaming live on YouTube and X at 97.3 ESPN.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And I am the voice of the voiceless.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill
Never thought this radio stunt would catch on so big.
on 97.3 ESPN.
Was there any beef with you guys like throughout the season to where it could have led them saying that?
No, I think that's the thing. Like I have a good relationship with, Dave, so it was just like kind of weird, for him to even
Oh yeah, I'm
speak
sure you
that
were
way.
just shocked seeing all
So
that.
I was just shocked.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, what would go through his mind that he's like, yeah, this is the appropriate time to bring up a comment like this.
Yeah, I mean, again, like obviously we didn't have the postseason we wanted to. We got beat. It didn't end the way we wanted to. And I know all those things. Like, and if you want to blame somebody, I don't mind you blaming me. Like I didn't play well. Like I didn't have my best series. And I'm totally fine taking the blame for anything that happens. Like it comes with the territory and things like that.
I don't mind you blaming me, but just don't say things about me that I don't like to the media. I mean, I would love like a shrink or somebody to have like a field day with this. This would be hilarious. All right, we got a ton of texts coming on the Whitehorse RV text board to get to at 609-403-0973. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on a Tuesday edition of the Sports Bash. The Whitehorse RV text board is open at 609-403-0973. Don't forget, so to come, Frank Klose with his Phillies mailbag at 97.3 ESPN.com at 3 p.m. Knicks Nuggets with Nick Earnshaw at 3:30. We'll get into the Eagles and the NFL with Adam Caplan coming up at 4 p.m. The biggest questions for the Eagles defense this offseason. And then Kevin Kinkead from Crossing Brawl. We'll get into some of the more of the, as kind of what Danny HT says on the text board, the drama of Philadelphia sports. Danny HT comes in. It says, why is there always drama in Philly sports teams, Josh? I think there's drama because I think the problem is that we live in a world where we got these smartphones that are not really that smart, but they're smart enough to entrap us into thinking and believing things, whether it's true or not. So Harper, like the rest of us, he's a human. He hears or sees something, and other people react to it, and he goes, yeah, what they said, yeah. Not ever saying, let me talk to the person who said what they said. Back in the day when we didn't have these smartphones, back in the day when we actually had to talk to each other, Danny HT, if someone said something about you, you talk to them about it. Or in some cases, people would tell you ahead of time, hey, I'm letting you know I'm going to say something. It may come off a certain way, but I'm letting you know when I'm saying what I mean by it. Yeah, that stuff doesn't happen anymore. Cole and LBI chimes in at 609-403-0973 on the Whitehorse RV text board. Says Harper is shutting up about this because there were rumors that he wanted a new contract a year ago. And then Nabrowski said what he said, and Harper is taking this as public negotiations, says Cole and LBI. Well, so you are correct. There were speculation that Harper wanted a contract extension previously, and the Phillies had been on and off the record, right, in public, but also behind the scenes, and said basically they're not renegotiating a contract that has, 6-7 years left on it. So, if Harper is talking because this is his way of lashing out because he didn't get the contract extension that he wanted, then I say that maybe this proves the Phillies' point why they didn't give him a contract extension. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He has 6 years left on the deal. He can become a free agent in 2032. There is no deferred money. There is a full no trade clause. He got a $20 million signing bonus. He gets incentives for winning MVP, World Series MVP, also being an All-Star, a Gold Glove winner, a Silver Slugger. So there's a lot here for this contract. Now, some people have asserted, well, when Harper signed the 13-330, that now looks like a deal compared to guys like Juan Soto and others, Aaron Judge, etc. And that might be part of the reason why Harper wanted this deal. One of the things he says on the Busted with the Boys podcast, and I didn't grab the audio because it was such a long explanation. Harper basically explains that one of the reasons why he took the Phillies deal is because there were teams like the Nationals that wanted to give him more total money but defer the money. There were other teams that were willing to give him more money, but they wouldn't give him their trade clause. There were some teams that were willing to give him money in terms of annual salary, but no signing bonus. There was one team he said that actually approached him about a 1-year, $50 million deal, and he said it was interesting at the moment, but then he realized that, do I really want to go through all of this free agent stuff again? So you could argue that Harper put himself in this situation because, as Dombrowski said, he did not have a Bryce Harper caliber year. So if Harper is crying about not getting a contract extension when he hasn't earned a contract extension calling LBI, then that's his own fault. And you know what? Good for Juan Soto and Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani and every other guy who has leveraged their situations to say, I am better, I am younger, I have a higher ceiling than Bryce Harper. You should pay me more than Bryce Harper. More text on the White Horse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Glenn Absekin says, you could argue that Harper in the last 4 years has just been a good player. He has had moments, but overall his production has not been elite, at least for a few years. He's definitely had a nice career, but he's not getting any younger, and his last 4 years have not been close to elite. Sometimes the truth hurts, says Glenn Absekin. And listen, Glenn, it's a more than fair comment, okay? You go back and look at what Harper's numbers have been since he won the MVP, right? Remember that was the moment that I think Philly fans were like, see, this is why we signed him. This is why we gave him all that money, because he went out and won the MVP award, right? He won the Silver Slugger, and he had, a league-leading 42 doubles. He led the league in slugging and OPS, and he had this amazing, well-rounded year. And even though the team didn't make some deep playoff run, as an individual, Harper had a great year. It was actually that year he had the second highest wins above replacement of his entire career. But to Glenn Absekin's point, he was 28 years old. Heading into this year, he's now 33. What has Harper done since winning the MVP? He's been injured. Remember, it was the elbow that got Tommy John surgery. Then it was the wrist injury. Then it was other soft tissue injuries. And you were kind of like, is he overcompensating? Did he come back too soon? One thing about on the Busted with the Boys podcast about how, they talk about how athletes, they always try to beat whatever the doctor says. They are, so like, for example, they were saying on the podcast that if a doctor says it's going to take you 6 to 8 months to return, that the athlete says, I'm going to do it in 5. So is that part of the reason why Harper's had multiple injuries? Because he is a guy who has said, I'm going to come back earlier than I should. Because again, to Glenn Absekin's point, 2022, 99 games. 2023, 126. 2024, he played 145, so he played a majority of the games that year. And then last year he played 132. So the last time he played at least 140 games, 2024, he was an all-star. It's not like he completely forgot how to play baseball. And that year he did also have 42 doubles. Again, he had more hits than his MVP season. But he had less walks. He had less homers. He had more RBI. he had a lesser batting average, lesser on-base percentage. So, to Glenn Absika's point, has Harper regressed, but Harper doesn't want to admit it? UPS Jeff chimes in on the text board at 69403-0973 on the White Horse RV text board. Jeff says, Josh, Harper is a man-child. He's a poster boy, prima donna. Harper has been coddled since he was 10, always praised and worshipped. Now he doesn't know how to process negativity. Well, UPS Jeff, I would agree with you if there wasn't plenty of evidence to the contrary. Because there are people who don't know that Harper's journey to becoming the number one overall pick was frankly derailed. So for those who don't know the whole story, Bryce Harper never graduated from high school. He got his GED, he went to JUCO, and his first year in JUCO baseball, junior college, he was bad. He was not good at all. To the point where Harper tried to go back to high school, and they were like, dude, you already graded out. You can't go back to high school. So then he had to, basically, suck it up and perform, and he performed at such a high level that's why he got drafted first overall. And, frankly, he had some years with the Nationals where that team was just garbage. So I don't know if he's always been coddled. I think that Harper is a guy that has had to deal with some stuff. He's had to deal with some family stuff. He's had to deal with some professional stuff. Now, if you want to say that he's a man-child, maybe he is. There are some examples of his, during his Nationals tenure, his, immature behavior. There have been moments where people have kind of cringed with some of his over-the-top displays demanding they re-sign JC Realmuto years ago. But I don't think a prima donna is a guy who's going to walk around the neighborhood for the local kid to help him get a prom date. You guys remember that story a couple years ago. So I don't know if he doesn't know how to process negativity, UPS Jeff. I think the problem with Harper is that he took what Dave Dombrowski said. Again, the question of we will find out if Harper stays elite or becomes just a really good player. He's taking that as a negative. See, sometimes in life, it's like the Stoics say, Marcus Aurelius said that, many of the ills that we perceive are in our own mind. They don't exist in reality. So I could argue that the problem for Harper is that he doesn't know how to process negativity. It's that he's creating something negative in his own mind and letting it fester. And at that point, maybe he does need to see a shrink. Steven Ventnor chimes in on the White Horse RV text board at 69403-0973. Steve says, Josh, you have been very critical of Dave Dombrowski, so it's good to see you were looking at the situation objectively. I just think Bryce thrives off of drama, and that's all it is about. Well, if Harper thrives off of drama, then can you keep it away from my ears? Can you keep it away from my eyeballs? Everyone likes to point to Michael Jordan and guys like that who have a chip on their shoulder and the way they're competitive. And it's like, but those guys didn't blast all of their whatever you want to call it in the media all the time. I mean, Harper now has done multiple interviews where he has complained about this. William K. Courthouse chimes in the White Horse RV text board at 69403-0973. He says, hey, Josh, I truly believe this was a very smart and thought-out move by Dave Dombrowski, and that Bryce Harper did not have the year that he is capable of having. I think it was a very deliberate and thought-out way of lighting a fire under Harper to attempt to have him bounce back and have a great year, says William K. Courthouse. Willie, it's a very interesting point because Harper keeps saying, I don't need motivation. I don't need somebody to tell me I need to play better. But yet, this bothered you so much that you went out and got a t-shirt that said, not elite. So William K. Courthouse, maybe you're right. Maybe this was the only way Dombrowski thought he could get through to Harper was to say this in the media, and then it was just taken too far, and now Harper is just being extreme about it. It's very, very possible. More text coming in, 694030973 on the White Horse RV text board. Texture didn't leave their names, so we'll call them Mr. Anonymous. They say, he says, Dombrowski brought Freddie Freeman because he just beat the Phillies in the playoffs last year. Dombrowski went on to state that Harper can be elite, can rise to the next level. I don't know. He could have said, I believe so instead. Listen, I think that the problem is that if Harper didn't say something about it, we wouldn't be talking about it. Alex in the Villas chimes in at the White Horse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Alex, hold on. Let me get to your text on the other side. I want to shortchange Alex in the Villas or Robbie from Little Lake Harbor. Your text on the White Horse RV text board coming up next, 609-403-0973. We are also live on YouTube at 973 ESPN. We do have one comment coming in here. It says something similar to somebody else. That Harper's probably looking for a contract extension, and Dombrowski is saying, show us why you deserve the contract extension. Yeah. I think that seems to be part of the thinking here when it comes to this whole situation. But we'll get more into it. Again, Robbie from Little Lake Harbor, Alex in the Villas. We'll get to your text on the other side on the White Horse RV text board. 609-403-0973. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash right here on 973 ESPN.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Rain-X wipers are the #1 wiper blades in America. That means all kinds of drivers choose Rain-X. Big drivers in small cars choose Rain-X. Small drivers in big cars choose Rain-X. Drivers with long hair and short commutes choose Rain-X. Drivers with short hair and long commutes choose Rain-X. Drivers with pets on board, babies on board, and bored babies on board choose Rain-X. Basically, drivers who love a clear view of the road all choose Rain-X wipers, the #1 wiper blades in America.
This is the story of the one. As the purchasing manager at a manufacturing plant, she knows the only thing more important than having the right safety gear is having it there when you need it. That's why she partners with Grainger for auto reordering, so her team members can count on her to have cut-resistant gloves on hand, and each shift can run safely and efficiently. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Josh Hennig, Philly for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, Frank Klose with our Phillies mailbag coming up in about 8 minutes from now. Also, Knicks Nuggets coming up a little earlier today, 3:30. Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds podcast. NFL Insider joining us for football at 4. And also Kevin Kinkead from Crossing Broad, all still to come here on 97.3 ESPN. As promised, though, let's get back to the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Alex in the Village chimes in. He says, Josh, do you think he's trying to use this as motivation? He knows he was playing bad and he wants to prove it that he's still elite. Well, Alex in the Village, I like the way you're thinking. And I don't mind athletes, with the chip on the shoulder, finding slights and grievances. I mentioned, guys like Jordan and Kobe and others have done that many times over the years. The problem I'm having is, why does Harper need Dave Dombrowski to make a comment? For him to look back and say, man, I'm 4 years removed from MVP season, and I've only had one good year in that stretch. Like, why doesn't he come up with that motivation on his own? It's the idea that, the you versus you in the mirror. What happened to those kind of motivations? That's my only pushback. Robbie and Little Lake Harbor chimes in the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403. He says, Harper needs to have a great 2 to 3 years. I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen, Robbie. Maybe it could. I'm not going to rule out what Harper's potential could be. Harper has proven many times before that he can have a down year and have a really good bounce back year. So I'm not going to pretend like he's incapable of going out there and playing well. I just think the problem is that the way Harper's handling it seems to be rubbing people the wrong way. There's one way to be like, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to have some great years. It's another thing for saying, I'm going to keep talking about what you said about me before I prove that you're wrong. Frank Klose coming up next.
home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill, 97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City.
Josh Hennig, Philly for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash Tuesday edition, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle, streaming live on YouTube and X at 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget the 3 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN, being brought to you by Broadleys Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Broadleys is your trusted source for heating and plumbing service, as well as installation for generations. And with all this wonky weather, you probably need your system to get a checkup. Give them a call at 609-390-3907 as we go from winter to spring and eventually summer. Make sure your heating, cooling, and plumbing systems are all ready to go for all the weather changes. 609-390-3907 or visit them online at broadleys.net. We're getting into the more about the Phillies mailbag with Frank Klose, joins us each week here on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. As Frank, first of all, glad to have you on board the show. I wish half the show today would not have been talking about the latest Bryce Harper comments, but here we are nonetheless. How you doing, Frank?
I'm doing well. How are you, Josh?
I'm doing all right. So, before we get into the mailbag, what is your take, Frank? You've seen Bryce Harper his entire tenure here in Philadelphia. What is your take on the Bryce Harper? He's basically keeps saying, I don't want to talk about it, but I'm going to keep talking about it.
Yeah, this is Bryce kind of making this into something. When you look at Dombrowski's original comments, I feel like he was talking about just the season he had last year. But then, of course, the not elite shirt in the offseason, and then now he's talking about it, calling it wild. I'm personally shocked that Dombrowski didn't just call him and fix all this early on, that it's still going on. But you know what? Whatever might motivate him, I suppose. But I think that Bryce Harper kind of is coming to camp with a little chip on his shoulder with something to prove, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
It's definitely not a bad thing, Frank. I just feel like, for Harper to complain as much as he is, you just said Dombrowski can call him. Harper can call Dombrowski. Like, Harper can get on the phone and be like, yo, we need to talk, and we need to talk now. And it's like Harper's like the person in a relationship who's like, I don't like it when my partner does this. And you're like, well, have you talked to them about it? And they're like, well, they can come talk to me. And you're just like, all right, I see what's going on here.
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of that. Or you know what? Maybe after it became something, Dombrowski just thinks, hey, you know what? If it's motivating him, or at least it seems to be motivating him, maybe we just let this go and then just see what happens. But I don't know if they had any reason to talk to each other in the offseason per se. So, I'm sure they'll actually see each other face to face this week if they haven't already.
Yeah, you'd hopefully at some point you might see the guy who is charged of the organization. But let's get to the Phillies mailbag, Frank, over at 973ESPN.com. Of course, those who don't know, you can follow Frank on the X platform at Frank Klose. That's Klose with a K, for all your Phillies questions. He does it each week here on 97.3 ESPN. And, Frank, you and I have not talked since the Nick Castellanos saga ultimately came to an end, and that's where Matt asked you the question on the mailbag. How did the Phillies manage to bungle the Castellanos situation so badly? And I'll kind of add an addendum to it, Frank, which is, I had Charlotte Barnes on Friday, and she talked about how surprised she was, how long the Phillies took to actually, bring this all around.
Yeah, the Phillies, it took till Thursday, which was basically the last day they could do it before he was going to have to report to camp. And so, I don't think the Phillies actually bungled anything here. The Phillies have kind of let it be known for a while now that Nick Castellanos was available for trade. Todd Zalecki reported on the Phillies show, great podcast I recommend. The Phillies tried to trade Castellanos not just this past offseason, but the one before that and the one before that. So this is offseason number 3 that the Phillies are trying to move Nick Castellanos. I don't know that there was a lot of interest for him. And you know what? The Phillies, of course, had nobody that they could make a deal with, but there was a team that might have been interested in biting. You know, there was some reports out of New York that the New York Yankees might have been interested in Nick Castellanos as a right-handed first base option. And ultimately, the Yankees decided against it, and they re-signed Paul Goldschmidt to a 1-year deal. So I think as long as the Phillies had one possible suitor that they could get something, and it sounds like Dave Dabrowski himself said was not expecting a lot in return in terms of either dollars or a prospect. As long as somebody was a possibility, I think I think it's their right to sort of see what they can get with the $20 million they were going to pay no matter what, right? I think that's they own the rights to the contract, so they can try to get something for it. So once the Yankees thing kind of flamed out, it seemed like there just really wasn't a lot of interest. And in fact, the San Diego Padres, the team that ended up signing him, they basically just put out there a while ago, yeah, we're going to maybe grab a bat that's right-handed, that's low cost, or or like available for a waiver claim or something like that. Padres weren't going to give anything for him, so they're happy to give him a shot if in this instance he was free, which he was. They're just paying him the major league minimum, but there just was not a lot of interest in Nick Castellanos, and quite frankly, Josh, for a guy that seemed to be upset he would hit 7th and upset not to play an inning of a game. Not even the fact that he was starting most of the games, but once he was removed for defense the first time, we saw how he reacted. I don't know how well he's going to accept this role in San Diego, and I think that was the question a lot of teams had, because San Diego, all right, what the heck? It's just the major league minimum. Why not give him a shot? But you know what? If he doesn't like the fact that he is actually a platoon player at first base, and he might not like that very much. We'll see where they hit him. I mean, he's not going to play in right field ahead of Fernando Tatis, that's for sure. So it looks like he's a first base platoon option right now, and of course, the left-handed side of that platoon is going to play more than the right-handed side.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger deal is less about where Castellanos ended up for a lot of fans out there, Frank. I think it's about the fact that, the feeling that the Phillies dragged something out that they maybe could have bailed on sooner. But, listen, he's gone. We can be done with it. We all can move on. I literally had people texting this week saying, can we stop talking about Castellanos? But we had to get to Matt's question on the Phillies mailbag at 973ESPN.com. Frank Klose joining us here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 973 ESPN. Speaking of the Padres, Dan asked the question, why did the Phillies re-sign Walker Buehler? He signed a minor league deal with the Padres. The Padres just giving out minor league deals to everybody, Frank.
Padres don't have a lot of money this offseason, and they're basically collecting characters like this, ones that might have some upside left and might have some experience, but the Padres are definitely looking to cut out some money. Now, the Padres are one of those teams that you might be familiar, had some TV deal issues.
Yep.
So, they weren't really willing to spend some money, because there was a lot, they were burned last year, quite honestly. And, they were trying to figure out how to move forward. So, they're not getting the kind of contract even after the dust settled, like the Phillies have, even the Phillies have. So they were going to be spending less money this year. And when you look at their depth chart, do you know, maybe you can guess, Josh, who their number one starter is on their starter depth chart? Are you aware of who that is in San Diego?
Well, what's his name is no longer there. The guy who had all the strikeouts every year, he's gone.
Cease. Yeah.
Yeah, Dylan Cease is gone. So I'm assuming it's former Philly Nick Pivetta.
That would be correct. So if Nick Pivetta is number one on your depth chart, that means you probably have some openings in your starting rotation. And
Right.
from what I understand, Walker Buehler, he was kind of sitting back and waiting. He wanted to go to a place where he would get a clearer path into being in the starting rotation. If you look at the Phillies right now, they're still kind of thin, but at the same time, they still have 5 starters. They have Sanchez, they have Luzardo, Aaron Nola, and then the other 2, which are kind of more question marks, Taijuan Walker and Andrew Painter, are at the back end. Painter hasn't proven anything in the major leagues yet. In fact, didn't even make the major leagues last year, even though we had the opportunity to. And on top of that, though, Zach Wheeler is coming back in the nearer future, maybe not too distant future, maybe not immediately, but Zach Wheeler will be back. So, he could have looked at that rotation and said, "Hey, man, they're stacked. I don't think I fit in here." And so he had the option here where it seems like there's a clearer opportunity to be in the starting rotation. So we took it. And let's face it, too, he was a guy that had success in Southern California, gets to play in the NL West. I'm sure that had something to do with it, too. But, there's still some opportunities out there, still inventory if the Phillies want to add an extra starter into the mix, which I think would be kind of prudent because, outside those 5 I just mentioned, then you go to Alan Ronhell and Bryce Wilson after that, I suppose. So hopefully the Phillies don't have to do that. Hopefully Painter shows up, looks pretty good. Then Taijuan Walker could be the swingman he was last year, and then hopefully Aaron Nola's back. Again, more question marks than usual, though, for this Phillies rotation. So I certainly understand why fans are asking about that.
Yeah, because it's not about, who fits the rotation for the whole year. It's about if somebody goes down with an injury, who's coming up, Frank. I think that's what some of the concern is, right? You don't have the depth at AAA that you used to have in years past. Like, if multiple guys, God forbid, multiple guys go down with injury, right? Who's going to be coming up to fill the void? And I think it might be nice to have another body, another arm who at least is capable of doing the job.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think that unless they can get something better than Alan Ronhell, I mean, if you look at the names out there, Patrick Corbin, does that excite you? I mean, the Phillies used to beat him up like crazy when he was with the Nationals, but had a decent year actually last year down in Texas with the Rangers. But for a lot of those types that are available, there is no guarantee from the Phillies end either. They may prefer, if they think it's a stopgap, to go to an Alan Ronhell or the like, and then maybe acquire somebody if they absolutely have to later on. But I will agree with that the starting pitching depth last year, I thought that they would accidentally win 90 games if nothing else because the starting rotation that was so deep. This year, I'm still thinking they're a 90-plus win team, but the lack of depth does concern me, especially coming off the years that Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola had last year.
Frank, another question coming in has to do with the conversation we kind of had at the top of the segment here for the Phillies mailbag, but it's actually a direct question about Bryce Harper. Chase asks you on the mailbag, do you, Frank Klose, think that Bryce Harper is elite?
If you look at Bryce Harper's numbers, if you pull up his baseball reference page and start looking at his WAR, which is often a marker of somebody's season, he's certainly not the 9.7 WAR that he was with the 2015 Nationals, that's a career season for most players in baseball, right? And he won an MVP with a 5.9 WAR. Last year he came in at 3.1, which of course is one of the lower numbers. It's of his full seasons with the Phillies, that he's kind of basically at the lowest right there. So yeah, there definitely was a dip last year, but I think a lot of that dip is an indictment on Phillies management there and the construction of the lineup, because Bryce Harper is not seeing pitches to hit. So he's got a lot less to work with. In fact, talking about the World Baseball Classic, he made a comment, which I don't know if it was a shot at Dombrowski or not, saying, "Oh, it's great having Aaron Judge hit behind you." Now, I don't know if the Phillies are in a position to go add Aaron Judge to hit behind him, but I think the Phillies, that's the one thing that the Phillies have been sorely lacking the last couple of years, is that number 4 hitter who can hit behind Schwarber and Harper. Now, last year they kind of settled into Schwarber being 2, Harper being 3. They need a good number 4. I mean, with all the endless cycle of right-handed bats behind him, Alec Boehm for a while, and then, JT's hot, Boehm's not, let's put JT there, or hey, Nick Castellanos, you want to give it a shot again? Oh, nope, sorry, you're not good enough anymore. So I think that is the thing that they really need to fix here. I think once they got a good bat behind him, he'll put up those elite numbers like you saw in the past. So I'm going to still say yes, because the other teams respect him so much that they do not wish to pitch to him. And that's why he is not putting up the numbers like he has before. Again, 3.1, very, very good. Could he be doing more? I think he could if he had that right lineup protection. And, this offseason, the Phillies, they added Garcia to maybe be a candidate for that spot if they can get him to do so. But we'll see how things go, and we'll see how Bryce's wrist, of course, was bugging him a little bit last year. I think that bears watching too if he has that pain again. But I think he's capable of putting together a big season again. If having someone behind him though, he would be that much more dynamic.
Well, who needs someone batting behind them more then? Is it Harper or Schwarber? Because you could argue that you just put Harper at 2, Schwarber at 3, it fixes the Harper problem, but then who's behind Schwarber, then the question is.
Yeah, then you have the Schwarber problem, right? So I almost think I think for the type of player Schwarber is, they wanted him to have Harper behind him so he could bash those home runs and drive in Trey Turner a lot, which is what happened last year, or whoever was still on base from the bottom of the lineup. So, I think that they're, it's like you got to pick a poison here, right? So I think it'd be even better if the Phillies found a way to clear that up. I'm sure that will be something they'll look at the trade deadline. Again, Adolis Garcia, I don't know if he's the guy. He might get a shot to do so. But if he emerges, that's wonderful. But part of the problem, too, is a lot of these positions are taken. So where you could plug somebody, of course, Bo Bichette, maybe you heard of him. I think maybe the Phillies might have been interested or something. That might have been the solve to that problem. So they tried. We all know how that worked out. But there really just wasn't an equivalent bat from the right side that really fit on the roster as like an infielder, which seems to be where the Phillies could make some room.
Well, I think the important part of what you said does fit the roster because there are players who have been talked about, rumored for months, but they didn't make sense. Like, Pete Alonso plays the same position as Bryce Harper, for example. There were other guys. It was like, well, if you trade for him, is he going to be what you are expecting him to be? So there's all kinds of names, but you're right. There was not an obvious guy to be like, if you get him, it's the answer. And I think that's the problem, Frank. That is, even if you get to the deadline this year, like if we're to project out who's going to be good and bad, I'm not sure some of those bad teams even have a quantifiable right-handed bat.
It's true. And actually, Major League Baseball wide, there's a dearth of right-handed bats right now. So, I mean, if you're the Phillies,
right-handed power bats who stay healthy.
Yes. I mean, if the Phillies did not re-sign Schwarber and got Alonso, I mean, yeah, they're still down a bat that they could really use. But I mean, yeah, if Alonso was somebody that could play defense, then maybe that'd be great. But he's not somebody who can. So and actually, I'm kind of surprised that at least up to this point, no one took it. Not the Phillies, because everybody will ask about this. But someone didn't take a shot at Rhys Hoskins, just out there because he's a right-handed bat. But yeah, there's just not a lot out there right now. But especially among those that can play meaningful positions on the diamond.
Well, again, Hoskins is another guy that he plays the same position as two people currently on the team. I remember all these fans who wanted to go out and get Eugenio Suarez, right? Well, he plays the same position as the two guys who are on the team.
Yeah, that very, very, very true. So, I mean, the Phillies, and it's kind of a tough thing to do, especially, we talked a lot the last few years about, well, yeah, JT Realmuto has to get out from behind the plate more. But, where's he going to go?
Where's he going to go?
First base or DH? Well, those two things are taken. And I know people are tempted to move Bryce Harper back to the outfield. I don't think that's the solution by any means. But, we'll see what happens with Aiden Miller, what he's going to be able to bring to the Phillies down the road. He's somebody whose bat a lot of people think is going to develop a little bit more. He's a right-handed hitter. So maybe they have that solution in-house, but we're not going to know that for some time. But they did they did put his locker near Bryce Harper this year down in Clearwater. So I think they're trying to get him to think big. So we'll see if that bat ends up being the one that can eventually do it. But not ready for that yet.
Well, that's one of the storylines I actually love about camp is that they put, Miller in between two veterans, Painter in between two veterans, Crawford in between. They didn't have like the rookies over here and the veterans over here in the locker room. It was, we are overtly going out of our way to put veterans with these young players to help them make this transition. I think that's one of the biggest thumbs up I got for the Phillies right now in spring training.
Yeah, I really do appreciate that. I mean, they don't promise them anything. You notice that Justin Crawford is still wearing number 80 and Andrew Painter's wearing number 76, So Aiden Miller's, I think he's 81. But they're not promising them anything yet. But it does send a message that they do think that these guys can maybe hang with the big boys someday. And even though Crawford's pretty much assumed to be on this roster in the starting lineup, they still held back the jersey number. So, hang on to your old J.P. Crawford jerseys because I think there's a new Crawford wearing number 2 soon.
Or what you could do is you can get the number 76 and all these weird numbers while they still have that jersey. And then if they go on to have an amazing career, you have like a rare collector's item to sell like 20 years from now.
That or they'll just confuse him with any other Crawford that might have passed through spring training, right? I mean,
okay, maybe not Crawford, but maybe Painter or something like that. It's like
those are fun to have. I do agree. I loved to used to go down to the holiday sale when I was a season ticket holder and try to buy up some of those jerseys from spring trading because they were a lot of fun to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Frank Klose at Frank Klose on the X platform is Phillies mailbag each week at 973ESPN.com. And he joined us today with me, Josh Hennig, from Mike Gill on the Sports Bash on 973 ESPN. Frank, great stuff. Talk soon.
Catch you next week.
Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash, 973 ESPN FM, 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Coming up on the other side, we got Nuggets. Yes, Knicks Nuggets still to come on the Sports Bash with me, Josh Hennig. And don't forget, we will get back to text board as well throughout the show, 609-403-0973, the White Horse RV text board. White Horse RV Center in Williamstown and Galloway. Your RV adventure starts here at White Horse RV. And as the weather gets warmer, if you're thinking about a road trip, thinking about your summer plans, White Horse RV, probably the place you want to go to if you're serious about that next road trip or some of those plans that you got coming up. White Horse RV Center and the White Horse RV text board is 609-403-0973. Knicks Nuggets, Nick Earnshsaw joins us next on 97.3 ESPN.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Never thought this radio stunt would catch on so big.
On 97.3 ESPN.
Get your game on at the Fanatic Sportsbook in the gallery at Ocean Casino Resort. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Go for the win. For more information, visit theoceanac.com.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
On 97.3 ESPN.
Don't forget the 3 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a Tuesday edition of the Bash, being brought to you by Broadleaf's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. I guarantee that many of us need a system tune-up after the bizarre winter we've already been through. Ice thunder for 2 weeks, freezing cold temperatures. Then it's all melting and maybe your basement smells a little weird. Broadleaf's Plumbing, Heat, and Air Conditioning is your trusted source. Call them at 609-390-3907 or visit them online at broadleys.net. An early edition of the Nuggets here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Nick Earnshsaw joining us here. Nick, how you doing on this Tuesday?
How are you, Josh? Good to talk to you. And I'll tell you what, I am over this winter. I'm over it. Spring training's here, baseball season, spring weather. I need it, Josh. I need the warm weather to come back and sit back, have a hot dog, a nice cold one, watch a baseball game. We need it. We all need it because I'm over the winter. Over the winter depression. I'm done. I'm done.
You're done, but it seems like Bryce Harper might not be done,
no.
Nick.
He is not. He is not. So he goes on busting with the boys. I don't know how much you've talked about it so far. I'm sure
I've talked a lot
about it enough.
Yeah,
I'm going to keep talking about it with you.
Well, first of all, I explained at the beginning of the show, it's a 3-hour podcast.
Yeah.
And the juicy stuff doesn't happen until about 2.5 hours in to the podcast. I got on my notes. It was on 2:28 when they finally got into the juicy stuff. They started talking to him about 48 minutes in. And by the way, they talked about a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Harper talks about how much he loves the city of Philadelphia. He talks about how, Philadelphia's got way better food than Nashville does. He talks about, how he loves Scottsdale, like tacos. Like, there's a lot in this podcast. They talk about how, athletes always come back too soon from injuries. Like, there's a lot in there. But, of course, Harper just can't help himself, Nick.
No, he cannot. And let's play a clip from it because I got to listen to some of it. I haven't gotten to finish the entire thing, but there was some good stuff. I skipped towards the end where you talked about the juicy stuff was at, and I wanted to hear what he had to say about Dave Dombrowski. Take a listen to this comment Bryce made.
Was there any beef with you guys throughout the season to where it could have led them saying that?
No, I think that's the thing. I have a good relationship with Dave, so it was just kind of weird, for him to even.
Oh yeah, I'm sure
that way.
Just shocked seeing all
so I was just shocked.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what would go through his mind. And he's like, yeah, this is the appropriate time to bring up a comment like this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we didn't have the postseason we wanted to. We got beat. It didn't end the way we wanted to. And I know all those things. And if you want to blame somebody, I don't mind you blaming me. I didn't play well. I didn't have my best series. And I'm totally fine taking the blame for anything that happens. It comes with, the territory and things like that.
So, couple things here. Love the accountability from Bryce Harper. He knows he didn't play well. Can't fault the guy for taking accountability there. Sure. I think he was taken aback by the comments of Dave Dombrowski because it felt like Dombrowski, when he said that, was in a meeting with the rest of his team, right?
Well,
that's
really
what
quick.
it felt like.
I played this earlier. I will play it again. I had to go find it because apparently the internet tried to scrub this. Okay?
Wow.
I don't know why nobody else is replaying the audio, but we're doing it here on 97.3 ESPN. 6 months and a day ago to today, Dave Dombrowski said this.
I mean, in Bryce's case, of course, he's still a quality player. He's still an all-star caliber player. He didn't have an elite season like he has had in the past. And I guess we only find out if he becomes elite or he continues to be good. I mean, it's not like it's like if you say to me, I look around the league, I'm trying to think. Freddie Freeman. He's a really good player, right? He still is a good player. Is he elite like he was before? Probably not to the same extent, and so that's nothing negative. Freddie's a tremendous player, and that's, to me, is Bryce.
Okay. So to me, I still have the same sentiment. It felt like he thought he was talking to like his team, the general manager, the scouts around him, like they were in a board meeting, right? Like, and he could just kind of talk freely. That's the way I took it from Dave Dombrowski. Should he have said that to the media? Probably not. Did Bryce kind of was taking it back like, yo, dude, I still think I'm a pretty good player? Sure. And this is all about ego, Josh. This whole situation is about ego on both sides.
Well, again, he said it to me like, we will find out if he stays elite or becomes a really good player.
Right.
To me, it sounded like he wasn't saying he's not elite. It's Dombrowski basically saying, I don't know what the future holds for Bryce Harper. We'll wait and see. And he uses the Freddie Freeman comment where it's like, is Freddie Freeman still one of the best first basemen in baseball? Yes. Is Freddie Freeman still one of the best players in baseball? Probably not. And remember, it was a week later that Dombrowski went on foul territory and said, guess what? Harper's still a top 10 player in the game. So it's like Harper's picking and choosing which Dombrowski comments he wants to cry about.
Yeah, and listen, it's all about ego, right? Like he doesn't want to hear. This is a guy who was on Sports Illustrated at the age of 15. Do we forget that? Like he's been at the top of the top.
Oh,
top
he brings it up on the podcast, by the way.
I'm sure he does. I haven't gotten to the whole entire thing. I started it this morning, had it on my office, and then I had to shut it down because I had some other stuff to take care of. But man, 3 hours long. I didn't think it was going to be 3. No wonder.
Can I just ask you really quick? Because I'm not, I do consume podcasts, right? I'm a podcast guy. I'm a audiobook guy. I feel like anything over an hour and a half, it's like I'm discouraged from even trying.
Like, wow, I got to get through all that.
I feel like
to this.
Like the last time I consumed a podcast that was more than 2 hours, like straight, was, and I will preface it by saying, I thought I was doing something smart, and then by the end, I realized I wasted my life away. The Taylor Swift New Heights podcast, where I was hoping,
you were locked in.
Well, I was hoping she would say something about, hey, I used to vacation in Stone Harbor. My family used to be in South Jersey. It's so cute that you and Kylie are now in Sea Isle. Like, I thought that would come up at some point over 2.5 hours, and it never came up. And by the end, I was like, I now know way more than I ever wanted to know about Taylor Swift. Like, what a waste of my time. So now, every time I see a long podcast, I immediately I'm just going to scan. I'm going to scan through and find what I need. I'm not listening from beginning to end because these people just want to waste my time.
Yeah. Listen, this is why our famous world traveler, Mike Gill, does not listen to player podcasts. This is why he does not listen to player podcasts. He can't take them. He cannot take them. I've had discussions about this with on the air, off the air. He can't take the player podcast.
I will say, and this is where, he's not here to defend himself, so I kind of feel, bad for even saying this, but Mike also does not like a lot of things that you and I like in general. Okay, there's a lot of shows, podcasts. There's a lot of music. There's a lot of content that Mikey just doesn't like at all that you and I like. So I don't even know how much of it is, the player podcast and how much of it is just Mike has his own unique set of interests.
Yes. And I can defend him. Some of the player podcasts, they're a rough listen sometimes. I'm just
Paul George's podcast.
Rough listen.
Horrible listen.
Rough listen. Tough. But sometimes, we work in his business, so we listen to him. And, I want to see if I can find any more information regarding, the teams we cover. So that's why I listen to him. But sometimes they're tough. I'm not going to lie. But going back to Bryce, we have to remember, this is a guy that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated at a very young age. Remember, he got his GED, skipped over the whole high school, college thing, and just went straight to play baseball.
And don't forget, he struggled his first year of JUCO to the point where he wanted to quit.
Yeah. So listen, he's been at the top of the top for the most part. He's been in the spotlight for a long time. So that was a shot, like a little, even that little shot by Dave Dombrowski, which I'm sure he did not mean for it to be a shot at Bryce Harper. He's going to take a little bit of offense to that. And hopefully it's in a good way. Like, take it out on the field, Bryce. Like, he knows he didn't play well in the postseason. He knows they haven't played well in multiple postseasons in a row. So, I think he wasn't happy that it wasn't kept in-house. Should Dave have said that out loud to the media like he was talking in a boardroom in a meeting going into next season? No, he should not have said it to the media, because now it's a story that we're all talking about and that needs to be talked about, because that's your president of baseball ops talking about your best player, your star player, the face of the franchise.
Absolutely. And listen, I think a lot of people, the vibe that I've gotten from the White Horse RV text board today, Nick, has been people just think Harper's being a complainer, that he's just being a whiner.
Yeah, just get over it. Just get over it at this point. I see where he's coming from, but at this point now we're doing a 3-hour podcast that's coming up still. So let's move along.
And guess what? It was like 5 minutes of the 3 hours.
Yes. It's not I know you enjoyed that part. All right, moving along. Nugget number 2. This I didn't see this until after, because it came out like during the Nuggets or like right after the Nuggets yesterday. Mr. Josh Hennig, the ratings for the All-Star game were out. 8.8 million viewers, the largest TV audience since 2011, up 87%.
Nick,
from all of the television audience.
Really quick, Nick, I would recommend you open a new tab on your computer and run one of those speed tests really quick, just because you buffered there a little bit, and then
you got me now.
I got you now. Yeah, I don't know what. 'Cause I got both computers monitoring the stream here. So if you froze on both, then you're really frozen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. All right, if you got me back now, we're good. I think
we're good. We're good now.
All right. So I was talking about the NBA All-Star game and the TV audience.
What were the ratings again?
8.8 million viewers for the TV audience, up 87%. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are I will ask the question that I think it was Ken Fang from Awful Announcing asked yesterday, which is how much of the Olympics helped with the ratings? Did the Olympics lead in and lead out help bring an audience in and from the All-Star game? That's the first question I have. If it was if it wasn't on NBC, if it was on ESPN, ABC, if it was still on TNT, or here's a question: what would the numbers been if it was on Prime? I am genuinely curious about that part of it. That's the first question I ask. The second question is, I would like to have more detail about, did the numbers start out slow and then it rose up throughout the broadcast? Because how many times, Nick, have we seen stories about, hey, people started talking about it online and more people started tuning in to the game? How many times have we seen a baseball game, a playoff game, right? Where the ratings, the first innings are maybe only 2 million, but then by the sixth inning, it's 12 million because people started talking about it online. They're like, this is a great game. You got to tune in. And people are like, I got to tune in. Where's Fox? So I am curious about, was it a steady 8? Was it a ramped up 8? For example, in the Eagles Super Bowl, we know that ratings dropped off tremendously in the fourth quarter. People were like, the Eagles won this game. I'm done for the night.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. So Brett Siegel, an NBA reporter, he tweeted out it was 8.8 million viewers across NBC, Peacock, and Telemundo. Last year, it was 4.7. Yes, combined.
Okay, so that's another conversation.
Yeah.
Whereas we have a whole controversy about the Super Bowl this year, which is NBC, also the Super Bowl, by the way. We'll throw that out there.
They had everything.
People are saying, how many people are watching on streaming, how many people are watching on linear television, how many people are watching international versus national. Like, we can criticize this 10 ways from Sunday here.
No, we definitely can. But I thought it was interesting that the ratings were up. I'm sure they got a little bit of a bump with the Olympics, et cetera, being on streaming platforms, all of that. But hey, it was a good year for people to see the effort be enhanced by the players. Ann Edwards, Kawhi Leonard, Wembanyama, all those guys. So It was a good year for them to actually show a little bit of effort during the All-Star game. We'll see what happens next year. Will they get the same rating as they did this year, or worse, or better? That remains to be seen. With no Olympics, will they get the same? That I'm curious to see.
It's a very good point. Very good point by you, Nick.
Thank you. I think I'm full of them at some points. Yeah, at times I am sometimes. All right, moving along. Let's go to nugget number 3. Did you see this? That the Philadelphia Eagles are changing the name of their practice facility. Did you see this, Josh?
I did not see this. So it's not going to be NovaCare anymore.
It will no longer be the NovaCare complex. How many years? It's been that forever. Ever.
I feel like it opened with that name.
I know. So it is changing. So the new name of the Eagles practice facility will be the Jefferson Health Training Complex. By a new deal signed by the organization, it will no longer be the NovaCare complex.
So it's going from NovaCare to Jefferson what?
Jefferson Health Training Complex.
I mean, no one's going to remember that. Come on. This is where naming rights deals just get in the way. Like, I understand that you want to sell something, but guys, no one's going to remember that it's the Jefferson Health Training Complex and no longer the NovaCare complex until you sell it to the next person. Like, that's what's going to happen. By the time we figure out that it's Jefferson Health
Training Complex,
Training Complex, and it's not the NovaCare complex, we are now going to have to learn a new name because it's going to take us about 20 years.
Yes. I was so used to saying down, as I'm sure many media people, many fans were down at the NovaCare. So used to saying that. I'm going to get used to this now. We had Xfinity Mobile Arena now with the Sixers and the Flyers.
And we know that's going to change.
I just got used. That will change. I just got used to saying Wells Fargo, it felt like, right? After Wachovia, we got First Union. I mean, Jesus. We're change the name. Just keep it. We got the bank, leave it the bank. The link, leave it the link. Just leave it. I was so used to saying down at the NovaCare. I don't know. This one's not rolling off the tongue the same.
Is there any information out there for like did like NovaCare end the agreement? Did Thomas Jefferson Health like outbid them? Like,
so according to Dave Zangaro, he tweeted out today, Jefferson Health now has the naming rights to the team facility formerly known as the NovaCare complex. NovaCare Rehabilitation will remain the team's official physical therapy partner. So the naming rights essentially have just gotten, I guess, bought out.
Oh, okay. So this isn't confusing at all. Got it.
No, it's not confusing one bit. Zero. Zip.
My goodness.
So there you go. All right. I can get one more nugget in for you today if we have it.
Why not?
So are you familiar? This might be for more of my millennials and Gen Zers out there. Are we familiar with Backyard Baseball, the video game?
I'm familiar in that I've seen reels of people playing it online.
Okay. So I've
never actually played it.
They came out, big tweet today. Backyard Baseball is returning in summer of 2026. I don't know if you saw
which I would.
This is a big deal for my generation. Nuts.
But why? Why is it a big deal? Like, can you explain to us old people why it's a big deal?
Because we grew up with it. Nostalgia, Josh. Nostalgia. Come on. We know nostalgia's big all the time now with everything. Nostalgia, Josh. Bring it back. This is in the sense of that when they brought the college football game back, they're bringing backyard sports back. Outstanding.
Sure. This felt like I could have done without this information.
See, this is why I said, do you want the last nugget or not? I said, I got it.
Okay, fine. I'll give you a nugget then, Mr. Nugget. That's generational, because you know what my generation cares about? The news that came out this morning.
What's that?
The return of Ronda Rousey and the return of Gina Carano.
I didn't see that.
The first MMA fight on Netflix ever will be the weekend of my birthday. The fight that never got to happen because Gina left MMA for the Hollywood industry, and then she got kicked out of the Hollywood industry, and then she won her lawsuit against the Hollywood industry, and now Ronda's coming out of MMA retirement, and they're going to fight thanks to Jake Paul. That's what my generation cares about.
So you're a big Jake Paul guy now, huh?
No, I'm a big MMA guy.
There you go.
I just got to give the guy credit. I got to give the guy credit where the credit's due, don't I?
He got it done. He got it done. He knows how to sell a fight.
And it's going to be very fascinating as we get close to this fight, because here's the big side note, Nick. Ronda Rousey announced today the fight is going to be at 145. This is a big deal because Ronda spent most of her career fighting at 135.
How about that? Interesting.
So we already got a little bit of like, what's going on here?
All
What's
right.
for you?
All right, there we go. Thanks, Josh. Nuggets. There you go. 33-30. Go. We're gonna play backyard baseball this summer.
All right, you do that. He's Nick Earnshaw. I'm Josh Hennig. Filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Good stuff from Nick Earnshaw today. I just don't know what backyard baseball is, the video game. I've seen people playing the game. I don't know anything about it. For all I know, it could be the best or worst video game of all time. Coming on the other side, we'll dig deep into the NFL. Eagles offseason defensive questions with Adam Caplan next on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig, Philly for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash Football at 4, as always, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com, and brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort and the Fanatics Sportsbook, the place to be. Listen, football season may be over, but we still have UFC fights. We got basketball. You know that thing in March with all the college basketball? That's a big-time thing. You can enjoy all the great sporting events and wager on all of them at the Fanatics Sportsbook. Go to the Fanatics Sportsbook. Go to Ocean. Go for the win. For more information, visit theoceanac.com. You heard the intro music. It is time to hear from Adam Caplan on today's Football at 4, as we're going to get into today what is next for the Eagles defense. I think it's part of the conversation it has, and we've been talking a lot about, a lot of the headlines in the media, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, but the defense will look different in some ways, in some capacity next year. And Adam Caplan joins us right now to talk about it right now on Football at 4. Adam, welcome in. How you doing today?
Josh, yeah, good to talk to you. Yeah, so we've been so obsessed with the new Eagles offensive scheme, with this West Coast base, and it's going to look different. I just felt it's time to look at the defense. We know Vic Fangio is going to be back, but the question is, where are guys going to line up? Can they get some of the younger players, particularly in the back end, to have new roles? DeJean, where he going to line up? That impacts what they do in the draft and free agency. And then, how does the league look at these players? What were their thoughts? What could they be long term? How do the other teams see them? That those are the questions that have to be answered sooner rather than later.
Well, let's start with DeJean, because of the fact that, Adam, how was DeJean viewed coming into the draft in 2024 versus what they are doing with DeJean now in Vic Fangio's scheme?
See, Josh, there's a lot to unpack there. So I'm glad. This is kind of why I want to talk about this. So there were clubs that Jeff Mosher and I talked to for the draft that said, you know what, we see him as a safety. Didn't even talk much about nickel. Although, look, he was a corner in college, but corner is not a nickel defender. That's a nickel position is a defensive back. It's not a corner, though people call him that. And Vic Fangio's made that pretty clear. It's not a corner. And I totally get what he meant. He had to explain it a little bit when he first got here, but I totally get that. But when you're looking at how the league saw him, there were a lot of questions. Not only what is his position, but is he a number one corner, as the media likes to look at, or number two corner? That was the question. Riley Moss, who's a really good athlete, he's a corner for the Broncos. There were questions whether he was a safety or a corner. And there have been a number of corners over the years, like Malcolm Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins, immediately they changed the safety when the Saints drafted him. Greg Cosell told us that. There's no way long-term he's not athletic enough. He's got to be safety. Turned out to be a really good safety. Helped the Eagles win a Super Bowl. But here it was, you don't worry about DeJean's athletics. It's just, what is he best at long-term? Fangio, the question is, what does he see him? From what we've heard, safety's not out of the question long-term. We already know about nickel. Corner, they drafted him to play corner because he was not healthy early on. They changed him to nickel. And he was so dominant. Now he's elite. He became an all-pro at it, Josh. Kind of hard to imagine right now that they would change him, but they don't have a corner opposite Mitchell. So there's a lot to unpack with this thing. And it sets up, Josh, to be honest with you, what they do in the draft and free agency and potential trades, quite frankly.
Yeah, and also it's the domino effect of the reality that, maybe you go into the draft with your draft board, right? Adam saying one thing, but if that guy isn't available when you're there to pick, you might have to go in a different direction. So it literally could be we don't even know what DeJean's role is going to be until we get to August, right?
Yes. Now, Josh, in OTAs in May, right, when the media is allowed to go, I would think that we're going to get a pretty good idea early on, sometime in May, certainly by the end of their mandatory camp, where he's lining up, because you've now seen him being maybe the NFL's best nickel. really one of the best defensive backs in the National Football League, and he's super athletic. He's a playmaker, no doubt about it. He's got positional versatility. He could play 3 positions. He hasn't really played safety here. But I'm so curious to see what Fangio really thinks. It's not like he's telling us, but the front office drafted him to play corner. That's not happened. Although he does that on base downs, which are early downs, Josh. But that's not realistic. Teams play so much. They play nickel. Most teams 70% of the time or more. So he's either going to. So you would think it's corner or nickel for him going forward, but we just don't know. There's a lot to decide, Josh, as you just said.
And speaking of the defensive back situation, sticking in the secondary, Adam, what about a young man who was a rookie last year, heading into his second year, Mac McWilliams? He was a guy a lot of people had a lot of hopes for. How was he viewed in last year's draft versus how he is entering this offseason?
So in the draft, clubs loved him as a nickel, potential as a corner, okay, an outside position. Not a lot of safety. They thought he'd be a great nickel. There were a lot of teams that I know had a higher grade than the Eagles drafted him in, but you did question how well he ran. That was a factor. But overall, Josh, he really didn't play. So he was a non-factor, but he could not build off because he didn't have a great training camp. Had a really good off season, but I came up with this saying. I don't know where I got it, but I called the off season AA baseball, training camp AAA, and the majors is regular season. I came up with that like 5 or 6 years ago because I couldn't come up with anything better. And I gotta be honest with you, I think that's kind of what the off season is. I use Keely Ringo as the best example of that. You just throw it out, it means absolutely nothing. Ringo was the off-season champion, and it wound up being meaningless. So I think what you do is you take what you know, you take what other teams tell you about what you thought he could be, and you see how these coaches think. And he clearly wasn't ready. Coaches tell you what they think. If the guy doesn't play, they don't think he's ready. But he's got talent. The thing about him and Mac McWilliams in training camp, Josh, was very aggressive, very physical. He wasn't great every day. He'd had some good practices. But if DeJean is not their nickel this year, Josh, they've got Michael Carter, who will not come back at $10.25 million. That will not happen. But if DeJean goes to corner, they could also look to reduce Carter's payment and bring him back. Good player. Maybe Mac McWilliams could be the backup nickel, and you cross-train him as a corner. So we'll see what happens. But he's got talent there. There's no question.
NFL insider Adam Caplan joined us for Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. Like, subscribe, and download wherever you get your podcasts. Also, the secondary, what about Jacorian Bennett? This was a guy, when they acquired him, a lot of people had high hopes for him, right? There was a lot of belief about this guy could maybe be the guy across from Quinyon Mitchell, and he couldn't even get in front of Adoree Jackson in the lineup.
He couldn't. Yeah, you're right, Josh. If you and I put together what are our top 5 Eagles disappointments last season, Bennett is absolutely in the top 5, might be top 3. The guy can run. He had some good tape, though he had 2 bad shoulders with the Raiders. But as he talked about, they got fixed, and he was healthy. He just could not pick up the match, carry, deliver, the mirror match system that Fangio uses, which Christian Parker most likely will also use in Dallas, as he's a defense coordinator for the Cowboys. He just couldn't get it. And they need now in his defense, he got traded in August to the Eagles, so he needs an off season. He's under contract. You might as well. They don't know we don't know yet. They have an idea what the cornerback group might look like with the guys who are under contract, but they haven't gotten there yet. You gave up draft capital for him. You might as well. Well, I don't remember exactly what the trade was. Was it the D tackle was involved in it? The kid from Stanford, the Eagles got
Thomas Booker.
The Texans got, Booker. I know that Booker became a Raider. I forget if they might have been traded for each other, but whatever the case may be.
Yep.
Without looking it up, they've got nothing out of the trade, and they could have certainly used Booker. So I'm really curious to see this guy. And he's talented. He's got speed, but they're going to have to learn sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to, it's almost like a domino effect, from DeJean to McWilliams to Bennett. the unanswered questions with this offseason are all going to determine what happens with all three of those guys when we get to May, June, and August. Sticking on the defense side of the ball, Adam, the other offseason conversation is about Jahad Campbell. Had a good start to the year, but then Nakobe Dean came back from injury, and he had trouble getting on the field. If Dean is not back, he is not unblocked on the field, but could the Eagles find new places to use him defensively next year?
Even if Dean came back, which would be a surprise, and if he doesn't, whatever, which is realistic that he would not return because they've got Campbell. They got to see. Last year, Campbell played as an add-in defender against the run. When folks say, "Oh yeah, he lined up as an edge rusher," he really was not. He was just there to play the run. Greg Cosell was telling us that. He goes, "People don't have it right." He really didn't. He didn't really rush the passer from an edge standpoint. It's kind of confusing. So they got to cross-train him as a real edge rusher. I know Vic said no when the media would ask, "No, we're really not doing that." But the data would show he was. But that you got to have context. He was doing it for a certain reason, not to rush the passer. They got to let him rush the passer. They got to do it, no matter what they do, whether Jalen Phillips comes back or not. It's not about how much, from a percentage standpoint. It's just let him get used to it with your techniques of what you want. Plus, you never know what's going to happen. Guys get hurt. Nolan Smith has had a big injury history. Phillips has had a big injury history, though he was healthy last season. And even if Phillips comes back, they need to take a look at Phillips. So that's what the offseason is about, is cross-training.
Really quick, Adam, we've heard a lot of different things about what Campbell is or is not good at. We know that he was a guy who was originally a pass rusher turned into a linebacker. I know Fangio has talked about that he thinks he's more of a linebacker than a pass rusher. What do you think the NFL people are looking at Campbell short and long term?
Both. That's why I brought it up. They saw him with the ability as his career would progress to line up as a true edge rusher. Like Zach Baughn's done it a little bit. Now, the New Orleans game in 24, Vic dropped him down to take away the zone runs for the Saints and against Alvin Kamara, and that was a great decision. Unscattered luck, the Saints didn't know what was going to happen. But they really need to take a look at Campbell because that's where we got that. When the Eagles drafted him, we had heard that. A lot of teams saw him the ability to do both, but it wasn't like there was a timeline. Okay, you have to do it now or else. But we're really curious to see what they do in this offseason.
For more information about the Eagles offseason, check out the Inside the Birds podcast. Like, subscribe, and download wherever you get your podcasts. InsideTheBirds.com for all their coverage. And, of course, at Caplan NFL. Adam Caplan joined us today's edition of Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam, great stuff today.
Thank you.
Josh Hennig here, filling in for Mike Gill. You're on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, Football at 4 being brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort and the Fanatics Sportsbook. Go to Fanatics Sportsbook. Go to Ocean. Go for the win. Whether you're trying to check out all the crazy basketball action in the month of March, whether you're trying to the next UFC fight, or maybe you want to go out for that Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano fight coming up in May, go to Fanatics Sportsbook. Go to Ocean. Go for the win. For more information, visit the OceanAC.com. All right, let's review some of the things that we talked about with Adam Caplan there for Football at 4. I want to start with the DeJean thing because here's my take on DeJean. Just because you're capable of playing multiple positions doesn't mean you should. And here's why I say that. I think most players who have played multiple positions in their careers, those players did it out of necessity, not just because they could play multiple positions. I think of guys like Rod Woodson and Charles Woodson, guys who started as corners, eventually moved to safety. It was out of necessity. It wasn't because they just could play multiple positions. Typically, guys who are multiple position players, they're used that way most of their career. In my mind, I think of a guy like a Peter Boulware, a linebacker for the Ravens, who was a elite blitzer, pass rusher, but also was a very underrated linebacker who could play coverage as well. I also think of a guy like Clay Matthews, a guy who was a high-level pass rusher, but also was a very good in zone coverage guy. So to me, the fact the Eagles are not using DeJean in multiple places like he played in college is a clear sign the Eagles think that he is better at a specific position than moving all around the formation, is what I would say first of all. The Mac McWilliams situation is something to keep an eye on because, as you heard Adam say, this is a guy that people projected as a guy who could play both nickel and outside corner. Well, if the Eagles thought Mac McWilliams was a good enough nickel corner, they would have kicked DeJean to the outside and instead of Dory Jackson just stay on the bench. But they didn't think Mac McWilliams could handle the job. So is Mac McWilliams' future as a nickel corner or as a outside corner? That's going to be determined this offseason because this is a guy who played both in college. I personally think that his future is probably as an outside corner who can be kicked inside if needed. I don't know if he's a Patrick Robinson type, but I think that I've seen people make that analogy, and we know what Patrick Robinson did for the Eagles at nickel corner to help them win their first Super Bowl. The Jacorian Bennett thing, as Adam brought up, he's 100% right. He is arguably one of the three biggest disappointments of the Eagles season. This is a guy that a lot of us thought, based on what we saw from him in college, what we saw from him with the Raiders, that he was just going to come in and boom, that's your number 2 corner, and he couldn't get on the field. Now, part of it was injuries, but part of it was he just wasn't better than Adoree Jackson. And that was a huge problem. Because if you're not better than Adoree Jackson, then yikes. We got some problems. We got some serious problems with this team if you're not better than Adoree Jackson of all people. So I tend to look at this as for as much as I like Bennett's skill set and as much as I like Mac McWilliams' potential, you got to go in this offseason looking for a legitimate outside corner across from Quinyon Mitchell, for a legitimate depth corner, because I can't depend on Mac McWilliams to develop or Jacorian Bennett to stay healthy and develop long term. I just can't do it. I don't know how this team is going to be able to honestly look at those two guys and say, yeah, we're good, we're fine. Because when you look at the free agent class for just the cornerback position, right? If you just focus on corner, it's not like the Eagles are going to have like a ton of great options. So really quick, for those who don't know, the free agent cornerback class is Trevon Diggs, who's still, not even a full year removed from a major injury. Jamel Dean is a guy who people have talked about in the past as a target for Philadelphia, but he might be more valuable to Tampa than he is to Philadelphia. Jonathan Jones is way past his prime. Amik Robertson is a guy who is has a history of injuries, along with Eric Stokes, two corners who are not even 30 years old, but they're like Jacorian Bennett. They have a history of injuries. So if you're to sign those guys, are they really that much of a better option than Bennett? And then there's a couple other names that are interesting because of their pedigree, but you have to wonder, are they actually any good at this point? Greg Newsome is a guy who was considered a top-flight prospect, hasn't really panned out in his 5 years in the NFL. Tre'Davious White was a huge-time prospect, but injuries have derailed part of his career, and now he's 31 years old. Benjamin St. Juste, the guy who had a lot of potential coming out of college, hasn't lived up to it. 5 years in the NFL. Jeff Okudah, first-round, I don't want to say bust, first-round letdown okay, has never lived up to the potential he had. Same with Roger McCreary, has not lived up to the potential. So there's a lot of names in free agency who either have significant injury history or who have been disappointments. So if you're the Eagles, do you just collect a bunch of guys like Newsome and Okudah and McCreary and say, hey, everybody come in and we'll see what happens? Or do you have to consider trading for somebody? I don't think it's a clear-cut answer. I think that if you're Philadelphia, you're either going to zero in on a guy in the draft, or you're going to have to go out and bring in maybe 2-3 guys to compete with Bennett for that outside corner spot. Now, of course, there's the other side of the coin, which is, because I don't think they're going to get Diggs. I think Diggs is probably going to get him and Dean are probably going to get the two biggest contracts on the free agent market. And unless you're willing to spend that kind of money, I don't think you're going to get them. If you believe DeJean can be an outside corner, do you ask the question about Roberts, Stokes, Newsome, Tre'Davious White, Okudah, McCreary, throw in there Jason Pinnock, right? Do you ask, can these guys play nickel? Or do you just bring in every corner you can find and tell DeJean you're going to be a safety now? And then I got to audition guys for two different corner positions, outside corner and nickel corner. And then finally, the point about Campbell, I think is interesting, is you heard Vic Fangio last year be very apprehensive about playing him too much at the blitzing position. The Eagles needed more pass rush last year. You could have argued they could have used Campbell, but Fangio was very reticent to use him in that role. So now you wonder, does Fangio just not believe he can do the job? Or is there something about Campbell's development that is holding him back at that position? And those are just some of the defensive questions this offseason for the Philadelphia Eagles. And thanks to Adam Caplan for joining us. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Josh Hennig hanging out with you. 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Still to come, we got Kevin Kinkead from Crossing Broad will join us coming up on the other side because, you know, Philadelphia sports have had a lot of drama over the years. And I thought we were done with the drama when Bryce Harper said on Sunday what he said, and it seemed like he was done. And then 2 days later, here comes the podcast. The Player Podcast strikes again, and we'll talk about it. More drama in Philadelphia sports. Who would have thought? Kevin Kinkead from Crossing Broad joins me next. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are streaming live on YouTube and X at 973 ESPN.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Keeping the fans entertained and happy.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Hey, man, thanks for coming so fast. I couldn't get anyone else to pick up.
Yeah, it's been a busy week. I'm not complaining, though. Business is way up lately.
Wow, good for you. I've been trying to grow my accounting practice, but it's been pretty slow.
Yeah, I was in the same boat last year. What really helped me was checking out this site, mylocalcustomers.com.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, well, most people haven't. It gives you a look at how many people in town are searching for what you do, and it also provides a plan to help them actually find you.
Like online?
Exactly. It's eye-opening, and it only takes a couple minutes to get started.
Huh, well, you fixed my sink. Maybe you just fixed my business, too.
Want to know how many people in your area are searching for your type of business? Start with a local customer analysis at mylocalcustomers.com. It's quick, it's easy, and it's free. Go to mylocalcustomers.com today.
That's mylocalcustomers.com. mylocalcustomers.com.
We have the perfect solution for sitting in traffic.
You come with me.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. We'll check back into the Whitehorse RV text board in just a bit at 609-403-0973. We're also streaming live on YouTube, and I see some comments coming in on the YouTube stream at 973 ESPN as well. But as promised, right now we want to get to the continued drama. I mean, would it be Philadelphia sports if there wasn't drama? That's what Texter said earlier today, Dan EHC. Well, we'll ask Kevin Kinkead from Crossing Abroad about it right now here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin, welcome back in. How you doing today?
Good, Josh. What's going on with you, brother?
Oh, it's another day in paradise with, people continuing to talk when they say they don't need to talk. And I got to ask you, because I know you guys cover this stuff at Crossing Abroad. Does it just feel like there's more drama in Philadelphia sports lately? Or are we just more, hyper aware of it because of social media?
I think it's a little bit of both, man. Is that a cop-out answer? We like drama. There is more drama because of social media. There's no Sixers or Flyers because of the All-Star break and the Olympic break. So like there's a vacuum, right? I mean, somebody's got to fill the vacuum with something. What are we supposed to talk about, man? But it's it's also funny because Bryce. There was a first opportunity over the weekend that the media was able to gather and talk to Bryce in that setting, so some people are like, well, why won't the media let it go? Well, it was the first time that they were able to talk to him. He made some comments to Matt Gelb and to some other people, but really the cycle was not able to be completed. The media cycle was not able to be completed until they had access to him. So I guess now technically we could drop it, but then Bryce goes on bussing with the boys and makes another comment about it. So it just sounds to me like he's not over it.
Well, he's not also over, but also I said this before you came on, Kevin. You don't think that those guys didn't get his permission about when to drop that conversation? Like, that wasn't recorded yesterday. You can tell by the production value that was recorded a bit ago, talking about being in Nashville and everything. So, like, I don't think for 1 minute that Bryce Harper was like, oh, yeah, don't drop it on February 17th when I'm in spring training. Like, Harper's not an idiot.
Yeah, well, it's social media strategy too. You got to maximize the amount of eyeballs on it and get all the engagement that you can get from it. So it's got to find the ideal time to to put it out. I just think it's funny because, looking at the quote, reading back the quote from Dave Dombrowski a couple months ago, and then reading the quote from Bryce the other day that he gave the media. I mean, it seems like they both agree that he was not elite last year. I mean, Bryce said it himself, like, what was the quote? My numbers are not where they needed to be, not where I want them to be. He said, quote, I know that I don't need to be motivated to be great in my career or anything else. So I think we have two guys who agree with each other here. It was just the thing, Josh, is that Bryce is just saying that he didn't want it aired out there. It was a trust issue, was really all it is. And he said, straight up that when I came into the organization, my understanding was that we keep things in house and we don't go to the media with that kind of stuff. Dave Dombrowski, to be fair, was not with the organization when Bryce showed up, but Dombrowski does not have to have some contract signed that says, I agree to not say anything about Bryce publicly. Like, he's been around. He knows that there's not much upside in saying something like that other than to light a fire under somebody, which, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think we all probably in some kind of agreement that Bryce is a fiery guy and a competitor. I don't think he needed the extra motivation, but he seems to be motivated by it regardless.
And it's also interesting because, the comment he made on the pod where he's like, I never wanted this to become a story, and it's like, well, you're the one who keeps talking about it. You're the one who wore the T-shirt, which, by the way, Kevin, that comment, oh, they just handed me a T-shirt, right? It's it's like, oh, okay. Hey, Kevin, if someone handed you a T-shirt of a rival to Crossing Broad, are you going to wear it? Of course you're not. Like, it's like, Harper has this attitude, like, they just handed me a T-shirt. Like, that's what jamokes like me say. Like, hey, I got a free T-shirt. You're Bryce Harper. You're a multi-millionaire. You can wear whatever the heck you want.
Well, it's just funny. It's like the world's dumbest game of chicken. It's like, you drop it. No, you drop it. You drop it, and really we could all just kind of stop talking about, but I think there's like some interesting, like, kind of philosophical stuff here when you go a little bit deeper. I mean, you could always ask yourself what the upside is of an executive, a player personnel executive coming out and saying something like Dombrowski, which was really not incendiary. I mean, he didn't say anything that was untrue. Bryce Harper wasn't elite last year. Bryce Harper also was dealing with, the wrist injury that was bothering him even before he went on the IL, which people seem to conveniently leave out in all this. It would be like saying, well, Joel Embiid's not elite, wasn't elite last year because he had a debilitating knee injury, so let's get the facts straight. But I mean, oftentimes, you look back and you think, like, what's the upside of these things? We all used to complain about Andy Reid never saying anything to the media that was interesting. All we got was platitudes, canned crap. We look forward to the challenge of playing the Tennessee Titans, right? And we were all bored, but guess what? He didn't upset anybody, and that locker room stayed together. Nick Sirianni is the same way, keep it all in house or whatever, because stuff just gets out of control. I mean, there were spinoffs of that didn't even have anything to do with Dombrowski. That weren't his fault. I mean, the trade talk, there's trade speculation. Bryce Harper comes out and says, the trade talk hurts. Dave Dombrowski didn't say anything about trading anybody. Correct. He clarified that they weren't going to trade him. But you have to know as an executive, things are going to take on a life of their own.
Yeah, and also if you're Bryce Harper, you got to be smarter than just believe everything you read on the internet as well. As I say that to Kevin Kinkead from Crossing Broad, joining us here on the Sports Match.
Yes, we have a reputation for peddling and rumor and innuendo, but I think when it comes to situations like this, we lay out the facts and kind of have measured takes on it, and we can analyze it pretty much down the middle. I just think it's interesting because when you talk, Josh, about like motivating factors, in any profession, Bryce Harper is an athlete, you and I in the media, the guy in Atlantic City who's working as a carpenter right now. The baseline motivator in all of life is disrespect. Somebody goes up to you and says, I think you're a terrible sports talk radio host. So that doesn't light a fire under your butt and motivate you to prove that person wrong, or say, I am a good carpenter, I am a good writer, I am a good athlete. You had guys from the Georgia national championship team that beat TCU like 65-7 coming out and telling everybody after that game that, there are predictions that we were going to go 7-5 this year. Not a single person thought they were going to go 7-5 that year, but Kirby Smart sold them on the disrespect angle. and that motivated them and that got them to play. So it's hard to, like, how can you not be disrespected by that, whether it's true or not? The player personnel executive who runs the team that you play for said that you weren't as good this year as you can be. So of course you're going to like naturally have a chip on your shoulder. I think that goes for anything.
Well, I think that's why the irony is on the flip side of the coin, the Nick Castellanos situation. It's like that guy was just so oblivious that it's like the whole world is telling you, Nick, you're really not that good right now. And Nick just like was basically like, bleep all of you. And it's like, and then now all of a sudden he's in a Padres uniform, clean shaven with a haircut. And he's like, I probably could have learned from some things. And it's like, well, no bleep, Sherlock. Like, come on, man. Like, it's just so weird. You get one athlete and Bryce Harper who's like, taking everything personal. And another guy, Nick Castellanos, is like, he's in the heat of it and he just couldn't get it.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, Nick, like confidence to the point of ignorance, perhaps. Like expecting to go out there every day, no matter how you're performing, if you're hitting the ball or not. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because I think like you talk about like who's a good locker room guy, who's a locker room cancer, who's a good team guy, who how do these guys get along behind the scenes? Not everybody gets along behind the scenes. They're not a single sports team or media outlet or any organization in the entire world where everybody gets along and it's kumbaya and they're all on the same page. You just got to steer the ship in the right direction and kind of set it set the right course and hope that it all comes together. But expecting these guys all to be team players and just fall in line or whatever. They have big personalities that are difficult to manage. Everybody's unique. Has a different view on things. Nick Castellanos couldn't get over apparently the fact that Rob Thompson never played at the major league level. Other guys probably don't care about that. Look at all the Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown stuff that we've been dealing with. I mean, it didn't stop him from winning the Super Bowl last year. So I think you can't micromanage this stuff. You got to let the guys be the guys. And I think it's like a double-edged sword, Josh. It's like, we complain that these guys don't say anything. The coaches and the executives don't say anything to the media. But when they do, it turns into a big blow up and everybody goes crazy with it. So going forward, you probably expect Dombrowski to say nothing at all, just give us boring nothing. And, our complaint will be, well, he doesn't say anything to the media. I guess we'll just have to live with it.
Well, no, he'll still say stuff. He'll just tell us a story about what happened in 2006 with the Tigers as part of, telling us stuff. Everything with Dombrowski is a story about something that happened, 20, 15, 30 years ago. Yeah. I remember when, and it's just like story time with Dave here.
Well, speaking of 20 or 30 years in one direction, future or past, maybe the 11-year-old kid that they reportedly signed will be ready to play for the team by the time that Bryce's contract expires and the Flyers have exited their rebuild, So listen, man, it just adds, I think, from a larger level macro perspective, like, people are on the downside of the Phillies vibes right now. It crested with the World Series appearance when things were fresh in 2022 and 2023. And now they're in kind of like a Sixers territory where people are a little jaded and burned out with the team. But at the same time, they won 96 games last year. Right. I'm trying to be pragmatic about this team. I want to enjoy good baseball in Philadelphia. So, you try to put all this stuff off to the side and just say, I don't know if they got any better or not. We'll find out. But it's a team that won the most games it's won since 2011. So, if you're going to hang on to, try to be pragmatic about it and hang on to the positive things and focus on that, you do that and you let the Dave Dombrowski and Bryce Harper stuff fall by the wayside.
Talk with Kevin Kinkead from Crossing and Broad, joining us here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. You mentioned a name a moment ago I kind of wanted to circle back to, the Jalen Hurts conundrum in Philadelphia sports. I get in a lot of arguments with people about Jalen Hurts. I keep telling people that part of the Jalen Hurts problem isn't that he's not a good quarterback. It's that he's unrelatable, Kevin. There's nothing about Jalen Hurts' personality, the way he carries himself, that is connective tissue to the average person. He's just such a different individual. So people have these assumptions and presumptions about him. And it's not that Jalen Hurts can't pass. It's that people don't like the way he passes. It's not that Jalen Hurts can't be a winning quarterback. It's that he just doesn't carry himself and talk in a way that get people excited.
Yeah, he's an interesting case, man. He always has been because he comes from the Nick Saban school of the media is rat poison. And,
Right.
Initially, I think in a lot of his press conferences when he was drafted, he came off, maybe as standoffish, which I can play well to the portion of fans who don't really like the media anyway and don't think that we have anything to offer. But I think to your point is more of like, getting to see this guy's personality, like the marketing side of it, connecting him to fans. I think that was a little lacking initially, but guess what? Winning cures all. People don't care about that if he takes you to a couple Super Bowls, but more specifically to the point of, like what kind of quarterback he is. Jalen Hurts is a dual threat quarterback. People forget this. Like they expect him to come out and be some kind of gunslinger. And the reason they won the Super Bowl in 2024 is because he did three things really well. Number one, he protected the football, got the turnovers, cut down interceptions and fumbles. Number two, he used his legs very well, especially his scrambling rate was much higher than it was this year, and the tush push was unstoppable. That is because of Jalen Hurts. And number three, when he did have to throw the ball, he threw it at a very high level, very accurate, safe, high percentage completions, and wasn't risky with it. And, it's like the guy was perfect for the offense. The offense was built to fit him. He fits the offense, and it worked for them. So you try to take what are you putting in there, a gunslinger, and try to put the square peg in the round hole. They won a damn Super Bowl doing it. So I think you just have to try to get back to what you were in 2024, give it another real try, admit that the offensive line was banged up and they weren't healthy all year long. See what happens in 2026, But I mean, this is what Jalen Hurts has always been. He's a dual threat quarterback, good with his legs. Look, if he goes down some Donovan McNabb-esque kind of route here and he doesn't run as much, maybe we got a problem. But, we wanted things to change on the offensive side of the ball, and we got changes.
Well, I think part of the problem is I get a lot of people come at me, Kevin. They're like, well, if you put another quarterback with the Eagles' weapons, and I'm like, name me a quarterback who won with lousy players around them. Like, it's not happening in football. Like, There's no quarterback who had like trash receivers, trash offensive line, and me at running back and won a championship. Like, look at Joe Burrow. Like, the guy gets murdered by his offensive line every week. No wonder he can't get back to the postseason. Like, people act like just because Jalen Hurts has talent around him is a demerit. And it's like, no, name me the quarterback who didn't have talent around him who didn't win.
Well, and if anything, I give the Eagles coaching staff a lot of credit for what they did in 2024 because you were spoiled for riches. You had a great quarterback. You had two great receivers. You had a great tight end. You had a great running back, and you had a great offensive line. It's kind of like what Mike Groh once said: "There is only one football."
Right.
same as basketball. It's like, we had these arguments with like, how many touches should Joel Embiid get? How many should Ben Simmons get? How many 3-pointers should JJ? Right? If anything, they said our strength is our offensive line, and we have a great running back, and we're going to lean on the running game. Doesn't mean that Jalen Hurts can't throw for 4,000 yards. If you put him in an offense that's designed to throw for 4,000 yards, he could throw for 4,000 yards. But you can't have everything, and they didn't have everything offensively, and they won a Super Bowl doing it. So, and by the way, that's only one half of the game anyway. Put an elite defense out there. So I don't know what people are expecting. Are they expecting perfection? Because there has never been a perfect football team. This is as good as it gets in the NFL. And I think, when we look back at it 10 years from now, Josh, I hope that people are just enjoying living in the moment because this is the most successful era of Eagles football ever.
He's Kevin Kinkead. Check out all of their coverage over at Crossing Broad, from the drama to the real sports topics over at Crossing Broad. And he joined us right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin, appreciate you making the time. Get better soon, man.
Thanks, man. Always a pleasure, Josh. Take it easy, all right?
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, we got more text coming in on the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Your thoughts on the Phillies drama, the Eagles defense. If you have a thought on the Eagles offense, all that and more still to come here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Yes, I see your comments coming in on the YouTube stream at 973 ESPN. All right, let's get some of your messages here as we wrap up the 4 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. I haven't touched on the YouTube stream for those who are watching at 973 ESPN on YouTube. We'll get to your comments now as we will get to more of your text board messages. I see James from Delaware and more at 609-403-0973 over on the YouTube throughout the show. A couple of different comments will come in. Angie chimed in on the YouTube stream, says, is the All-Star Game viewership numbers global or U.S.? Do we have that breakdown? Angie, it is global. And that's part of the rub that people are having about some of these analytics out there in terms of the Super Bowl, in terms of the NFL, in terms of the NBA, is that there's a lot of people who are critical who are saying the numbers are inflated because you're including people from around the world. And, there are people who, the NBA, for example, Victor Wembanyama, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic. There are guys who are from other countries who have huge fan bases who are tuning into the game. It's one of the parts of the reasons why these leagues are bringing these players in, because they're trying to increase their viewership numbers. You look at a sport like baseball. You bring over guys like Hideo Nomo, Shohei Ohtani, Ichiro Suzuki, Masahiro Tanaka. I'm forgetting Hideki Matsui. Well, you're getting a whole group of people who never watched Major League Baseball before, who didn't care. Now they're watching because the guy from their country is playing. The NBA does the same thing, and it does help their viewership numbers. It does amplify those numbers. And the problem is that those leagues don't want the breakdown to come out, Angie, because the breakdown makes people question, well, do you really have people in the country that is the origin of the sport even care? All right, more text coming up on the other side. Josh Hennig hanging out with you, filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
South Jersey's official play-by-play home of the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers.
At 0 point would I ever consider not being a fan of the team.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey.
Five o'clock hour of the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig driving you. Well, some of you are driving home. Some of you are probably driving to work. Some of you are commuting your kids around. It is that time of year still. I think the next time the kids get off is what, Easter weekend? Black Friday is like the last hurrah for the next 2 months. Get those kids back in school. Let the parents get back to work. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. 97.3 ESPN. We got plenty of texts still to get to. Keep them coming in. 609-403-0973. The Whitehorse RV text board. Whitehorse RV Center in Williamstown and Galloway. Your RV adventure starts here at Whitehorse RV. You know, for that next vacation or family getaway, you might want an RV. If you're going to get one, it's Whitehorse RV. Locations in Williamstown and Galloway. We also got messages that come in on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. For those who are watching on the YouTube stream, thank you for tuning in. Just like Angie was tuning in earlier asking about the viewership numbers. Also, still to come this hour, it's a little bit delayed, but we will have the unsportsmanlike moment of the day coming up this hour here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. And, you know, we've been talking a lot about what Bryce Harper said negatively on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast. Well, it wasn't all negative from Bryce Harper, okay? There was some negative things he did say. But there were some positives he said as well. So I don't want to portray Bryce Harper as just some whiny crybaby, because really, out of the 2 hours he spent with Bustin' on the Boys podcast, we only gave you 5 minutes of it. Him talking about the elite comments. But there's another comment that he brought up on the pod that I think is more in tune with why Philadelphia sports fans love Bryce Harper. They love Bryce Harper because in many ways, Bryce Harper understands what other athletes don't, what the Nick Cassianoses of the world and others don't understand about Philadelphia sports fans. From the Bustin' on the Boys podcast, Bryce Harper talked about why he loves playing in a city like Philadelphia, because he was asked by Taylor Lewan and Will Compton, man, those Philadelphia sportsmen, they're intense, they're wild. Like, how do you handle being an athlete in a city like that?
It's such a great city to play in. Obviously, it's a really hard city to play in for a lot of people. And if you're not ready to play there, then don't come. Because because I mean it can chew you up and spit you out real quick. Obviously they're very passionate and they work hard for their hard-earned dollars. So when they come and buy a ticket for us each night, if that's NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, like they want you to go out there and give it your all, no excuses or anything else like that. So I love that. I mean, obviously I kind of feel like I grew up like that. My dad, no excuses, like go out, play your game. Doesn't matter how you're feeling or what's going on. Just play hard and have fun. But I love playing there just for the fan base and knowing that they're going to, kill for us each night. They want to beat up the other team more than us.
That's the other side of the coin with Bryce Harper. And I didn't want to go the full 4 hours of the Sports Bash without bringing that to all of you here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a Tuesday afternoon. The understanding that Bryce Harper, for as much as we have criticized him today for continuing this pettiness that he has about what Dave Dombrowski said. The reality is that he is still somebody who loves the city of Philadelphia. He loves the fan base. He identifies with the way they look at all these things. It is absolutely wild that the guy is so intensely on both sides of the paradigm, right? On one hand, he's everything you want in a Philly athlete. He understands the fans. He works hard. He's a grinder. He's aggressive. But on the other side of the coin, it's, you know what? I don't like that Dave Dombrowski suggested I might not be elite anymore. I can't even say it with a straight face. It's just so wild that on one hand, he's so passionate and he loves the Philly sports fans. And then on the flip side, he says this on Bussin' with the Boys podcast.
I think there's things within the organization that you probably shouldn't say in an outward like expression, right? Like if I had a problem with you, I'd probably, if you were on my team, I'd probably bring you to the side and talk to you. And so I think that was one thing when I signed there was like, hey, like we don't say anything about the organization outwardly or anything else. Like make sure it's behind the closed doors. And if you have a problem, like we'll talk about it.
Keep it family.
No doubt. And so I think that's the kind of where it rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. I respect Dave and everything that he's done in the game and everything else. He's great at his job and stuff. But, I think for me personally, like if you have a problem, like you can talk to me and have an issue with it, like the way I'm playing or whatever.
I mean, if I'm just to take Bryce Harper at his word, Bryce Harper sounds like a guy who loves the city of Philadelphia, loves playing in the city of Philadelphia, but he's just not happy with how the organization handles their business at times. And I think both sides of the coin are allowed to coexist. I don't hate Bryce Harper for being a little tone deaf and taking what Dave Dombrowski said a little too personally. But I also can still appreciate the fact that the guy is not just a panderer in his passion for the city of Philadelphia. By the way, something else Bryce Harper said on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast, he wishes he started his career in the city of Philadelphia.
I wish I would have started my career there just because of the way it was. Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, Ibanez, like all these guys, just that whole era of Phillies baseball was really cool. Yeah. And just seeing kind of the fans rally behind them. And, as an opposing player going in there was nothing like it.
I mean, again, he gives you all these reasons to love him. He gives you all these reasons to appreciate him. But then he goes around and says stuff like this.
Again, like if he had something like that to say, like obviously I'd want him to say it to me.
I assume he has your phone number?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that'd probably be a good way to go about it.
I think the tough part is like it's just a story that doesn't need to be out there. So like when we get to spring training, it's gonna be a story. Like people are gonna talk to me about it. People are gonna ask me about it. It's just like it doesn't need to be a story. Like you don't want stories like that in spring. Like you don't want that to be right when you get there. Like, hey, what do you think? Like great. This is what I have to answer. Besides,
everyone's got their opinion. Onward.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's where I kind of am starting to settle with Harper, which is two things can simultaneously be right. He can be, very unnecessarily emotional or reactionary and taking what Dave Dombrowski said all wrong. But at the same time, he can be our guy who is taking it the wrong way. He can be the guy who says, I love Philadelphia. I love the fans. I always want to be here the rest of my life. And Dave Dombrowski, I don't like you. Although it's weird because he says he has no beef with Dombrowski, but yet he won't talk to Dave Dombrowski about everything. He says, my phone's available. He can call me. But if you have no beef, then why don't you call Dombrowski? Why don't you be the bigger man, Bryce Harper? again, it's such a strange two sides of the coin when it comes to Harper. And again, I don't want to spend an entire 4 hours here on 97.3 ESPN here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. We'll get to the White Horse RV text board in just a bit at 609-403-0973, as well as your messages on the YouTube channel. I don't want to neglect that. I don't want to make it like Harper is all bad. He's all anything. I just think that I can be frustrated with some of the stuff that he says and still appreciate and love the guy and say that, hey, he is part of the reason why people actually care about the Phillies. If it wasn't for Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber, would we really care about the Phillies? There were many, many a year that we looked at the Phillies and we just didn't care. People were not in the ballpark. People were not watching on television. You know, when they had guys like Dave Buchanan pitching for them, when they had guys like Aaron Altair in the outfield, when they had guys like Tommy Joseph playing first base, or go back even further, you know, when you had guys like Scott Proctor getting starts in the late 90s, Matt Beach, right? The Phillies have had many years where we were just indifferent about the team because we knew they just weren't good, right? You know, no one was excited when they acquired Vicente Padilla, Nelson Figueroa, Travis Lee, and Omar Dahl for Curt Schilling. Most fans were like, who on earth are these guys? So I do want to acknowledge that, you know, for as much as we can be critical of Bryce Harper and his strange obsession with misunderstanding Dave Dombrowski, I think it's also important to acknowledge that he is a huge part of the reason for the Phillies' success, for the fans caring about the team, and bringing the fans back to the ballpark. Now, if you want to keep them in the ballpark, I'm just saying, you might want to win some more games in the postseason. And I think that's the other side of the coin when it comes to the Phillies. Let's get to the White Horse RV text board at 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. We've got a lot of texts throughout the show and throughout the day. I want to get some of them here where I can. Dan EHC says Philadelphia sports drama. It goes back as far as Mike Schmidt and Charles Barkley. Even Reggie White. Can't name them all, but it's endless. Yeah, you know, you can throw in there J.D. Drew, Eric Lindros, the whole Jeff Carter, Mike Richards fiasco with the Flyers years ago. Oh, boy. I mean, there's just so many. You're right. It does feel like there is a long history of drama when it comes to these guys. James in Delaware chimes in at 69403-0972. Maybe Bryce Harper can borrow that book from A.J. Brown. James goes on to say, to me, it sounds like he's still sad about Washington winning a ring without him and Juan Soto getting more money. That's from James in Delaware. Well, I do think that Soto getting more money has ruffled a lot of guys' feathers. I don't think it's just Harper. I think there's a lot of guys around the league who look at what Juan Soto got from the Mets and said, I can't believe the Mets gave him that contract. Not because Juan Soto is a bad player or he didn't deserve to get paid, but because I think there's a lot of people who look at Juan Soto and again, around baseball and say, this is a guy who literally hit .313 5 years ago. I don't think Juan Soto's hit better than .288 in the last 5 years. And by the way, Juan Soto has 3 straight years of over, 120 strikeouts? Now, he walks a lot, too. The problem is that players like Bryce Harper and others are saying, why does that guy get all that money? Which is basically almost double what Harper's getting paid. And then guys like Harper, like, what am I, chopped liver? I don't think Harper's as mad about the Washington ring situation because if you've listened to interviews, whether it's on the Bustin' with the Boys podcast or others, he does talk about the Washington years. And my interpretation, James Delaware, has always been that Harper, he was so over Washington. Like, he does go out of his way to not be hypercritical of Washington, like the city and the fan base, but you can tell the way he talks about the ownership and the front office and the management that he didn't want to be there. And, he talks about in the Bustin' with the Boys podcast, the whole story, like his side of it, how, like, he had a lot of teams coming at him, and he was talking about maybe San Francisco with the Chicago White Sox. The LA Dodgers came in late. So, Harper, I think that he was kind of like I want to get out of Dodge. I don't want to be in Washington anymore. I'll go almost anywhere. But then he realized where he really wanted to be was Philadelphia, and he basically told, and again, I'm kind of paraphrasing the story of what happened. He basically told the Phillies, give me your best offer and I'll sign it. And then that's the story of John Middleton flying on his personal plane to Vegas to offer the deal. Harper getting on the plane, coming to Philadelphia in spring training to announce the deal. Remember, they were sitting on top of the dugout and all that stuff. So, it's definitely a interesting picture of Harper that you have a guy who on one hand wants to be paid as one of the 10 best players in baseball, but on the flip side, he doesn't want to be anywhere else but Philadelphia. Excuse me. More text coming in at 69403-0973. But James Delaware, I do appreciate what you're saying because you're right. There is a part of Harper that does feel like he looks around and he's like, come on, man, like what gives? And to which the Phillies, I think, are being completely fair with him. The Phillies are saying, you haven't had an elite year since you won the MVP award. You've had one really good year and you were an all-star in 2024. Aside from that, you've had wrist injuries, hamstring injuries. You had the Tommy John surgery on your elbow. You are not the bona fide stud that you used to be. We need to see you actually perform before we give you any more money. So Harper can look to Juan Soto and all these guys all they want, but the reality is that those guys, look, those guys did a very good negotiating job. Juan Soto was able to leverage his age and his potential into the idea that he should be paid as the highest paid position player in baseball. Over on the YouTube channel, we actually, it was funny, we actually talked about Nick Earnshaw brought up Backyard Baseball. Jeff chimed in on the YouTube channel. He says Backyard Baseball came out in 97 on Microsoft. That's what I remember. Nick probably knows the game when it first came out on PlayStation. Well, you got to remember, Jeff, a lot of people are taking like old games and they're like they're remarketing and rebranding it. You heard Nick Earnshaw mention the idea that it's like NCAA football being revived, Backyard Baseball being revived. It was on PC as well. I see that part I am semi-familiar with. And that's what I was telling Nick. Like, look, I'm familiar with it, but I'm not going to act like I'm like excited about it. As I told Nick, I felt like I was disappointed that he didn't bring up the Ronda Rousey Gina Carano news. But then again, that's a it definitely is an age gap thing because, for a sports fan like Nick Earnshaw, Nick being the age he is, he didn't grow up seeing the rise of mixed martial arts and the evolution of combat sports. And for someone like him, he only knows what the UFC is today. He doesn't know all the nuance and the stories and the characters and all the wildness that we went through from the late 90s to about, I want to say COVID in 2020. That was kind of like what brought everything to like a stuttering, not stuttering, like an intense halt. So, like, for someone like Nick, he's going to look at backyard baseball. They revived this game. And then someone like me is like, I got two of the biggest stars at one point in MMA who are coming back to fight each other. I always enjoy these conversations I have with Nick Earnshaw, Jeff, and I appreciate you chiming me in on the YouTube channel because Nick does give you another side, another perspective, another angle on these conversations. And that angle is you look around sports and you realize there's a whole group of people who they just didn't grow up with certain things. They did not experience certain things. And I think that, that's part of what makes these conversations fun is that we all come to the sports table from different corners of the sports universe. All right, so the coming on Sports Link moment of the day, as well as more of your thoughts and comments on the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Don't forget, we are streaming live on YouTube at 973 ESPN, and you can listen to 973 ESPN wherever you go with the 973 ESPN mobile app. It's free, thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a Tuesday edition of the Sports Bash on 973 ESPN.
Baseball season will be here soon. South Jersey and your business can be part of the action. Now, Town Square Media lets you advertise alongside Philadelphia Phillies games on Connected TV, putting your message on the biggest screen in the house, while fans stream the games they love. That means local, engaged viewers and real results for your business.
Play ball!
So step up to the plate and get in the lineup today. Reach out to Jim McLean at townsquaresouthjersey.com and start winning with Connected TV.
We have the perfect solution for sitting in traffic.
Come with me.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
When you have a players association that has been around for 50 years and its entire raison d'etre has been avoiding a salary cap, having leadership in place that is stable and solid is paramount. But last year, the FBI and the Department of Justice started an investigation into the MLBPA, and since then, questions percolated about Tony Clark's standing. The resignation, which is not official yet, but which we are told is going to be today, leaves a vacuum at the top. And whether it's directly related to that investigation by the Eastern District of New York or otherwise, what we now know is that the MLBPA does not have an executive director who had been there for a decade.
That was ESPN MLB insider Jeff Passan this morning on Sportsmanlike. One of the big news stories in the sports world at large is the fact that the MLB Players Association's longtime leader, Tony Clark, is not just no longer the man in charge, but he is completely out of the picture. Further reporting has revealed that internal investigations revealed that aside from the FBI investigation, that Clark had an inappropriate relationship with his sister-in-law who had been hired by the union in 2023 at Clark's advice. So the man's got the FBI on his tail. Sounds like he's also got his wife on his tail, the players' union on his tail, and he said, I'm out. And now you have a leadership vacuum in Major League Baseball going into what some might argue is the most important collective bargaining agreement negotiation in the history of baseball. Baseball is at a massive turning point. The owners are looking at the idea of a salary cap. The players are very much against the salary cap. The owners are saying, we cannot keep going on the model that we have because the money, revenue-wise, that used to be there is coming in a different form now. To which the players, at least publicly, are saying, we don't care. It's not our problem. It's your problem. But the reality is that with Tony Clark now having to bail, the players might now get forced into agreeing to something maybe they didn't or wouldn't want to previously. The reality is that the salary cap idea is actually the best thing that could happen to baseball. The problem is I think a lot of the players look around at other sports and say, Yeah, but the salary cap puts a literal cap on those players' earning potential, which they're right. There's nobody in football, basketball, or hockey who could ever get a $600 million contract because it would basically wipe out a team's salary cap space. But the real question is, why should anyone get $600 million? And I think that's where the rub is for these athletes that don't understand. The fans don't really care how much money you make. You care because you want to maximize your value. And it kind of goes back to the Bryce Harper conversation we were having. Harper's mad about the elite comments because he wants a new contract. He doesn't actually care of what Dombrowski says about him in the media. So the reality is that now you have an environment where the entire sports world is going to be watching Major League Baseball very closely. Because the Major League Baseball cannot survive the next collective bargaining agreement. It's going to kill their revenue. They are fortunate to have rebounded from the last couple labor disputes. 94. The other one about 20 years ago. Baseball cannot afford a lockout or a shutdown. And people like Bryce Harper, you could argue that they are acting out based on how they feel about the upcoming labor dispute. A huge reason why a guy like Bo Bichette chose the Mets over the Phillies was because he wanted contract opt-outs. The Phillies don't offer contract opt-outs. So a lot of this has to do with the reality that the other sports understand that they have to keep their spending under control so the whole league benefits. You know, Brian Windhorst was on, I believe it was the Rich Eisen show the other day, and he made the comment that, the NBA's financial model is basically socialism. The idea that, the NBA says the bigger clubs are going to help take care of the smaller clubs because when all teams are making money, the whole league benefits from it. And so there's a wealth distribution element that comes to these sports that have salary caps. Major League Baseball has tried to do some sort of trickle down with the luxury cap system, but it hasn't worked because guess what? Teams like the Tigers and the Orioles are still not consistently spending money. In a salary cap system, you are forcing everyone to spend money. It's a very simple equation. But guess what? I'm not going to sit here and act like that this whole situation isn't anything except for bad for the players. If the players don't have strong leadership, the owners are going to get a salary cap and the players are going to walk away with a bad deal. They'll be forced into a CBA that they don't want. So the whole Tony Clark thing being forced out, and listen, whether it's because he was having an affair with his sister-in-law or because the FBI was breathing down his neck, whatever the reason is, the reality is that it happened. And for people like Bryce Harper, they want a new contract because, remember what happened in the NFL in the 1990s. When the NFL finally went to the salary cap system, there was a rollover effect. People who were already under contract rolled into the new financial model. So guys like Bryce Harper, they don't really want to leave Philadelphia. They just want to make sure they're being paid a certain number. So when the entire economic system changes, they're not getting the short end of the stick. And Jason Delaware, I think the part that you're ignoring is that the other sports have given out long-term contracts. It's just those contracts have imploded every time it's happened. I go back to the Ilya Kovalchuk deal. That was, I believe it was a 12-year contract. And it ended up being a disaster because he signed the contract for financial stability, but then he found out there were so many stipulations on that money that he wanted out, and he left the NHL altogether. There have been long-term contracts in the other sports. The problem is that the players realized, as the owners did in those sports, that those contracts are just not worth it for everyone involved. So if it's not worth it for everyone involved, why do it? And again, to me, I look at the situation with the Phillies as a direct outcast. Remember, it was Bryce Harper that cussed out Rob Manfred, the baseball commissioner, last summer when he brought up the salary cap conversation to the players. Because the players view the salary cap as this is the end of our earning potential. Sure, it's the end of the earning potential for the top 2%, but not for the whole league as a whole. It's on the Sports Like Moment of the Day here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on 97.3 ESPN. It's one of the big sports stories nationally of the day, and I just wanted to kind of bring it full circle for you guys here to the local side, because how it impacts a team like the Phillies is John Middleton can no longer spend stupid money. But the bigger question is, should he be spending stupid money? Should the Dodgers be out spending everybody? Does baseball need more even playing field? I would argue yes, they do. And guys like Bryce Harper just got to accept the reality that what is best for the game may not simultaneously be best for your bank account long term. All right, more Sports Bash coming up. Josh Hennig hanging out with you. Check out the Whitehorse RV text board one more time on the other side. 609-403-0973. Josh Hennig hanging out with you, filling in for Mike Gill in the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are streaming live on YouTube and X at 97.3 ESPN.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And I am the voice of the voiceless.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
This is the story of the one. As an HVAC technician, he and his digital multimeter are in high demand. So when a noisy office HVAC turns out to be a failing blower motor, he doesn't break a sweat. With Grainger's easy-to-use website and product information, he selects the product he needs to keep everything humming right along. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey, it's Mike Gill. Have you checked out the most loved Indian restaurant in South Jersey? The Nizam's Indian Restaurant on Route 40 in Egg Harbor Township is amazing and ready to serve you delicious Indian dishes. NJ.com ranked them the #2 best restaurant in all of New Jersey. At Nizam's, they believe that dining is more than just great food. It's the whole experience. The Nizam's open 7 days a week from 11:30 a.m. to 9:30. Join them for a special lunch buffet on Sundays from 11:30 to 3. Visit thenizams.com for more information.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Keeping the fans entertained and happy.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
5:48 here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. One more segment on a Tuesday on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, coming up, we have the very abbreviated edition of the Best of the Sports Bash that will be followed by Big Ten college basketball, Michigan versus Purdue at 6:30 p.m. here on 97.3 ESPN. Let's check back in the text board. The Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Let me see here. UPS Jeff says, no one forced Harper to sign a 13-year contract. He now has to live with it. And listen, Jeff, I think that that's how a lot of people feel. I don't think that your take or your perspective is that unique. I think the Phillies would agree with you. I think the Phillies would say, look, Bryce, you signed this contract knowing that the market would fluctuate. You know, I think that that's where people don't always remember how these things line up. So, for me, I tend to look at, a lot of those. A lot of times when players complain, I think it goes back to the fact that the player says in the moment, well, I'm trying to think how to say it. A lot of players will say, I don't care what happens in 13 years. I just care about the here and now. And I would say that, every one of those guys is lying because everyone feels differently when they see someone who they deem to be a lesser, at their craft, right? UPS Jeff, you work at UPS. If you see somebody working for FedEx and you see that guy makes double what you do, but you're putting in more hours and you're more efficient at your job, you're going to be mad. You may say before you see the FedEx guy, you're not mad, but as soon as you see that the FedEx guy is making more money than you, you're going to be mad. It's just human nature. One more from James in Delaware, chiming in at 69403-0973 on the White Horse RV text board. He says, except for Mahomes, I don't recall an NFL contract for around 10 years. That's why they have opt-out clauses, no trade clauses, restructure contracts, and deferred money, says James in Delaware. Well, so what you're probably forgetting about is the Donovan McNabb contract. I believe that was either 10 or 12 years. So there is that contract. You have the Bledsoe contract that was signed in 2001. I believe Brett Favre also signed a 10-year contract at one point. So there have been plenty of guys who have signed very long contracts. I got to double check the exact list. Let me see here. I know I saw an article a little while ago about the longest contracts in NFL history. So, okay, so here it is. So Brett Favre, 10 years. So 10 years in 2001. I remember Drew Bledsoe, the 10-year contract. Because I remember the Bledsoe contract. That was a big part of the Brady documentary and the Brady story was that, how was Brady going to get the starting job when they gave Bledsoe this 10-year, $103 million contract? I distinctly remember that. And I remember the McNabb 12-year contract because the McNabb contract, I believe, is still the longest contract in NFL history. What else got? Oh, wow. I didn't know Dante Culpepper got a 10-year contract. That's insane. The Michael Vick 10-year contract was voided because of him going to prison. And then you got Mahomes. So there have been other instances of people getting long-term contracts, James in Delaware. So it's just that some of them didn't work out, like the Michael Vick, and others did work out, like Brett Favre. Although the Brett Favre thing, again, he retired and unretired so many times, it kind of like allowed them to get out of the contract a lot easier. Let's squeeze in one more text on the White Horse RV text board at 69403-0973. Dan in EHT says, Phillies lowballing a lot of player contracts. Harper, Romuto, Bohm are clearly... I extremely disagree with that, Dan EHT. GT Realmuto getting 3 years, $45 million is an overpay. You're giving a catcher in his mid-30s $45 million for 3 years is not an underpay at all. And when Harper got the contract, he did the $330 million contract back in 2019, he was one of the highest paid players in all of baseball. So that's a very bad job by you, Dan EHT. You're better than that. They're not lowballed at all. And whoever's out there saying that those players are getting lowballed has a lot of misinformation. Now, the Alec Bohm thing is complicated because him and the Phillies went to arbitration. They agreed on a $10 million number. So while in the most literal sense, yes, he is paid less than many third basemen, he's still paid good money. And he's being paid more than being paid previously. So don't get it twisted. Don't cry sisters of the poor for the Philadelphia Phillies. All right, thanks everybody tuning in on 97.3 ESPN FM. Thanks to Kevin Kinkead from Crossing Broad, Adam Caplan for the Inside the Birds podcast, Nick Earnshsaw for Nick's Nuggets, Frank Klose from 97.3 ESPN.com's Phillies mailbag. And thanks to all of you out there for listening on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great night, everybody.